Greetings, everybody. It is the first episode of the Basement Vagrants podcast for the year 2021, or as I call it, 2020 Part 2, The Revenge. And with me, as usual, in the hot seat right next to me, holding hands, is Bubs.
You know, the funny part is, if you say 2021, it sounds like you're saying 2021. And it kind of did.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say that's accurate.
Because this year ain't much better so far.
And coming at us through the power of the internet, Andrew Schweitzer.
Alien frequencies are semi-open, Captain.
Today, just for fun, I looked up to see what the projected movie nominations are for the Oscars for this year.
Now make sure they check all the boxes.
Almost none of them I had heard of.
Okay.
But I'd say out of the 10 people or the 10 movies nominated for Best Picture, I think 6 of them were about racism. So, you know.
Only 6.
Only 6. So, you know, Hollywood's still way too white, I guess. But, yeah, but none of them I'd even heard of. They rescinded.
Racist.
They rescinded the rule about having to play it in theaters. Mm-hmm. Some of these were Netflix movies or movies that are at least premiered on Netflix. So, what else are they going to do?
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, and we might have brought this up before, what was the biggest blockbuster movie? Like, what are the top 3 or 4 movies this year that actually made money?
Of 2020?
Yeah, because I assume they came out in January, February. That was about it.
Birds of Prey would have had to be one of them.
That was 2020?
Yeah.
It was? I could have sworn that was 2019.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Oh, it was 2020.
Wow.
No way.
Okay, well.
The big joke on Red Letter Media was that all the Oscars are going to go to Bad Boys for Life and Trolls World Tour.
Yeah.
Because those came out around the beginning of 2020. Those were like the last big theater movies.
Or what was that?
Those are Fuck You, It's January movies.
What was that, Tenet movie or whatever?
Tenet. That didn't do very well.
No, that came out in the summer.
Yeah, but they played it in theaters. I don't even think it went on streaming. Because Nolan wanted it to be in theaters.
Yeah.
And it didn't make any money. And it got, like, middling to kind of poor reviews, I think.
I think it's one of those kind of too smart for its own good movies.
Yeah.
I saw one reviewer say that it was, it highlighted the best and the worst of Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I kind of don't have much of an interest for it, although I like his movies. Mm. It was supposedly like a high concept movie where the concept is all of the movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like, kind of like Inception, although Inception still had good action scenes and good characters. It was more just like the concept took over the entire span of the movie, if you know what I mean.
And honestly, I think if you're only going to throw out 1 or 2 quote-unquote big movies to toss out there to try to lure people back into theaters, you got to throw some really simplistic popcorn movie just to get it. You either got to throw it a superhero movie or just something dumb like Fast and Furious.
The next Jurassic Park movie.
Yeah, just something big and that everybody's familiar with and are comfortable with, and it is, you know what, I just need this thing right now.
Well, there is a new Jurassic Park movie coming out in 2021. My layman opinion, if that comes out, in the late spring, early summer, and if this is a big if, but if the virus is kind of under control and cases are down and people start going back to theaters, it could make, decent money. Yeah. It's not going to make $1 billion, which will bring us into the first news thing I want to talk about, which is the movie we've all been looking forward to, No Time to Die. The new Bond movie has been pushed back again to October because obviously MGM wants to wait to try to get it into theaters to make money on it because, I think they tried to... I don't know if this is true or not, Schweitzer. You read more of news than I do. I heard that they wanted to offer it to HBO Max for something like $600 million or something like that.
Yeah, they've been shopping it around. HBO Max was considered, so was Netflix, but at the same time, they're still it's a big gamble. You don't want to put it on HBO Max and then find out, well, theaters are going to be opening again in 2 months, and because you never know what the heck's going to happen. I mean, theaters aren't going to be opening anytime soon in this country. I mean, like, how long until we get the vaccine exactly?
But no streaming service is going to give you that much money for one movie.
They can't make that money back on that.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, basically, consider yourself lucky if you can sell it for what you paid to make the damn thing at this point.
Just if Netflix got it, they paid $600 million for it. How much is a Netflix subscription?
Is it still $10? I don't know.
I think it's like 15, isn't it?
You could be right.
So 600, three more zeros, divided by 15. They would have to get 40 million new subscribers, to make that money back.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably, well, I mean, there's probably more than that subscribers now, but that's unfeasible.
Does HBO Max do what Disney does and charge you the extra $20 on top of whatever you're paying to get the new releases?
I don't know. Although if a streaming service did pick it up, I would not be surprised if they did that. But the thing is, I think MGM needs to just realize that they're not going to make money off of this movie. And it's sad because MGM, it's a historic studio, but they've not been doing well financially for the last 20 years. They went bankrupt in the mid-2000s. Because I remember at the time, I think it was just before Quantum, or maybe it was just before Skyfall. I don't remember. Maybe you remember, Schweitzer, but they had gone bankrupt, and I was worried that there was going to be no more Bond movies. And then they came back somehow. I don't know if they got bought out by a bigger company or whatever, but
I don't know all the details, but I think it was around the time of Quantum of Solace. I think
you're right.
I think I may have seen like a cover for Entertainment Weekly asking, "Is this the last Bond movie?" And I was like, "Oh, probably not," because I wasn't that interested in reading it. But yeah, no, it's.
So I mean, I don't know MGM's financials, but this is a case where if this movie if this movie doesn't make any money, maybe they're done. Like maybe the studio's bankrupt, because I mean this is their big franchise, right?
Yeah.
The budget on it was $200 million, which is not the biggest movie ever, but it's pretty big. And so they're going to need to make at least, $500 million to make all that money back?
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't know how much they spent on advertising because the movie's not coming out. Or maybe that means they've spent more on advertising because it had to get pushed back so often. I don't know.
That's true.
But they just need to realize this is basically a write-off.
Yeah.
I think anyway. I think even if best case scenario by the end of the year coronavirus is wiped out, or at least it's not a big deal anymore, I think the culture of going out in public with crowds to do anything is going to be changed for a long, long time. Even if everyone's vaccinated, there's almost no chance of getting the virus. I don't think most people are going to want to go into a theater anymore.
You've conditioned people now to stay home and be used to it. And you've already got a generation coming up that's used to just sitting at home and watching your computer screens all the time anyway and not going out and doing stuff. So
ticket sales were down before the virus even hit. And you can go to Best Buy and get a 50-inch 4K TV for like $500 or less now. So who's going to want to go back to theaters? And I say that as someone who likes going to the theaters.
I do too. And
there's almost no reason to anymore.
So you're saving not only by just paying for that subscription service, but now you're not paying for gas to go, paying for a meal. You're not paying for all the popcorn and everything else that goes along with it. You're saving a bunch of money.
If you're a family of 5 and you want to go out to the theater, $13 to $15 a ticket for 5 people, plus concessions, which will be as much, if not more, than the tickets. Mm-hmm. Or you can go get Disney Plus, and if it's a new movie or whatever, pay the $20 on top of that. Get popcorn and pop at the dollar store. You're paying what, a fifth of the price? There's just no reason to go to the theater.
It's sad because I like the experience of going, and maybe it'll kill the big theater and it'll kind of open up more of like a, not necessarily gourmet, but almost like a specialty niche theater where it'll be smaller theaters, more interactive. You're having a meal or something, or you're sitting on like couches or lounge chairs in like a little group while you're watching the movie.
I always bring up the example of the ArcLight Theater in Texas, which has been around for a long time. It's it's not a chain theater, it's a smaller, independently owned theater, but they're basically a restaurant with a movie screen. You go in there and you watch a movie, but you can have you have spaghetti and wine with your partner while watching, the new Terminator or whatever. That's something I would be interested in. I wouldn't go all the time, but that's a nice thing. Yeah. Or like just a smaller movie where you show older films. Like we like going when the theater puts on, Blazing Saddles or Back to the Future or whatever. That's always fun. I think they need to, like, Cineplex might be gone forever, but maybe we'll see the new rise of smaller independent theaters.
Well, it's kind of like when Blockbuster fell. All of a sudden, the smaller independent video rental
Family Video came in
and rose from the ashes. So you might see something like that happen again.
I think that's best case scenario, really.
Mm-hmm. And it might drive down what the movie companies are charging the movie theaters to get these movies, because they're going to be desperate to have their movies even shown to make some sort of money off of it now.
Yeah, well,
they don't have the giant franchises paying millions upon millions to get them into their theaters anymore.
The relationship between theaters and studios has changed, because now, it used to be that the studios needed the theaters to show their films. Now the theaters need the studios to give them films. Yeah. So, the tables have completely turned on that one. It's a very interesting time. I'm increasingly interested in what's going to become of movie theaters lately.
Bring back the drive-ins. At least one or two here and there.
Well, that's the perfect post-COVID movie watching experience. I mean, everyone's socially distanced in their cars.
You could the weather doesn't even necessarily have to be. You could get away with doing it in the wintertime. I mean, you're sitting in a heated car. You got the sound coming in. As long as there's no snow, you could.
Technically, you could. I wouldn't personally really want to.
I wouldn't, but I mean,
I wouldn't want to sit there with my car running for 2 hours watching a movie.
True, but
people would.
People would, right?
Yeah.
Or some people would even sit in like little tents with the little propane heaters and watch the movie.
That'd be kind of neat.
Because people camp in the winter. So
yeah.
What's wrong with having like a little tent area set up with like a little heated propane heater? And you're if you're skiing somewhere and sitting on a deck somewhere after skiing, right? It's not much different.
I didn't even look into the drive-in theater around here, if they were open this year or not. The one in Tilbury?
Yeah.
I never even thought of it. Well, I mean, I thought about it, but I never bothered to check. But yeah, I wouldn't mind going to a drive-in again. Anyway, so we're gonna have to wait a little longer for No Time to Die. Hopefully, they don't push it back again, but who knows? It's hard to plan too far into the future anymore, and it's still 9 months away. Now, this is something that Schweitzer brought up to me, Bubs, but I'm sure you've heard about it as well. I was surprised to hear that the WWE Network is going to be shutting down.
There was a lot of people surprised about this. One of the biggest people surprised about it was ESPN was surprised about it.
Oh, yeah?
Because apparently they were in talks to do something similar to what the deal with Peacock was. And then they just announced, hey, by the way, we're hooking up with Peacock. So basically what's happening, as far as I know, I don't know a lot of details because it hasn't really trickled out yet, is NBC Universal, that owns Peacock, is giving the WWE $1 billion over the course of 5 years to basically put the WWE Network on the Peacock streaming service.
Ooh,
that's an investment, man. Holy cow.
In the United States, the network, as you know it, will be shut down. However, it will not change the international.
The WWE Network will.
Yes.
Okay.
So I guess you're I don't know if you're a current subscriber, if it just rolls over to Peacock, or you now have to both subscribe to the WWE Network and Peacock, or if Peacock is all encompassing, or if it's an extra. I don't know. I don't know what the tier system on it's going to be.
From what I read, the brief article that I read, they said it was going to become part of it, and there's only going to be one fee.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's 100% confirmed. It could change. I mean, I don't know when this is taking place.
I think April.
Oh,
from what I understand, if you have the network now, you're not even going to be able to get Mania on it. You're going to have to get Peacock.
Huh.
So it's happening pretty fast. This is a big win for WWE. I mean, it's an easy, like the Fox deal. It's here you go, here's your money. Whatever happens now happens.
Mm-hmm.
They've got they can still just run things the way they're running them. Still, I don't know if all the live pay-per-views are still going to be on there or not. I'm assuming
they've been talking about getting rid of those, haven't they?
They still offer them, but it's just kind of funny how like when the WWE Network came out, they were almost like making fun of people for not having the network. Like, why would you want to spend $60? But now with this Peacock thing, and if they're only doing, on-demand stuff and not the live stuff, now they got to go back to people and go, oh yeah, so yeah, you got to get cable again, and you have to pay $50 a month for your pay-per-view. I don't know if that's all included in it too. I would imagine they're probably it's still going to be part of that network. Otherwise, you're really fucking people over.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's the reason why a lot of people have the network is
just for the pay-per-views.
It justifies the $9.99 a month.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to pay $10 just for some old content. Fuck no.
Yeah. Now, why NBC? They just offered the most money? Like, was WWE looking to sell, or did Peacock approach them, or what?
I think Peacock might have approached them, from my understanding. There's not a lot of detail on it. It was just kind of out of nowhere. I didn't hear any rumors of it happening, any talks of it happening.
Nothing on the dirt sheet.
It just, all of a sudden, by the way, Peacock, NBC just bought the WWE network. Okay.
Like every network wants to have their own streaming service now?
Mm-hmm.
Is this just that NBC is desperate for content? Because there's been no partnership between NBC and WWE before, has there?
Actually, yes, several times.
Back in the 80s.
Back in the 80s, Saturday Night's Main Event.
Okay, we're talking 30 years ago. Fine.
Right. Also, they aired some of those re-airing of WrestleMania specials, I think probably maybe 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So they've been in and out of bed with NBC for a long time. So there's always been kind of a sort of working relationship there. I heard that maybe USA's not overly happy with it either, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It just kind of ruffled a lot of feathers.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Peacock. Has it been around a while? What's been on it? Is it a new service?
It's a new service, but I don't even know. I haven't heard much about it either because I'm just looking it up right now. Peacock streaming. It is available, but peacocktv.com. But of course, you click on it, it's unavailable in my region.
Yeah, you can't get it in Canada.
I was just going to say it must be U.S. only because I've never even seen it advertised.
So I'm wondering if this is just their way to try to have an advantage over CBS On Demand, which I believe is now being rebranded again to Paramount or something. I don't know. I heard something about CBS CBS All Access is being rebranded. I heard that. I don't remember what exactly it was. I don't know if ABC's Disney, so I guess.
Right.
And then Fox is Disney too. So I guess this is their way of kind of just bringing over that whatever number of, automatically you're now inheriting every WWE network subscriber unless they decide to jump
I guess
off.
It does give them an edge. I mean, ABC and Fox are owned by Disney, so obviously they're going to be the kings, and CBS, I guess, has Star Trek?
Now, I don't know if they're going to bombard this thing with ads. Is it ad-free? Are they going to start splicing ads at the beginning of these things?
Well, from what I read, I looked into the Peacock business model, and it says it costs $5 a month for the service with commercials, or $10 a month for the commercial-free version. And there's also a completely free version, which has limited programming. Which I think sounds pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, $5 a month is not very much, and if you're used to watching NBC on TV, you're used to commercials anyway.
And now that I think about it, I do kind of remember them maybe 2 or 3 months ago having limited stuff on the Peacock network.
Yeah?
Because I figured it was like some of their stuff that was available on the network, like some of their documentaries and stuff, I figured it was just stuff that'd been there a while. They were advertising, hey, this is on Peacock now, go ahead and watch it. And I know they've been doing clips on Hulu for a long time. I don't know if that's going to stop now because of this.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they've kind of just been teasing it for a while and testing the waters to see how it works. And now they're like, you know what, fuck it. And you can't, WWE, especially now with COVID and everything else and the live attendance, you can't blame them for taken that money.
Well, for sure.
And now all they have to do now is make content. They're guaranteed that money. Whereas the network, it was like, oh God, if we don't have this many subscribers, we're fucked.
Yeah.
So it's a huge win for them. I don't know if NBC is going to profit on this or not. My only other concern too is what if NBC Peacock falls apart?
Yeah.
What if that streaming service just dies because it's not getting enough people?
Well, then theoretically, WWE...
Like everybody else, they'll be absorbed by Disney.
Yeah, exactly. That's gonna
and
happen.
I think that's probably what people are most shocked about is you would have thought Disney might have snapped them up. I mean, there was always rumors of that for years. And the fact that Disney owns Fox now and they're on the Fox network, you'd think that'd be a natural partnership for them. But Peacock swooped in and probably offered them more money than anybody else was willing to offer them, and they just took it.
This may be conspiratorial thinking, but if you can just theorize for a second that Disney does buy WWE, that could be the worst thing to happen for WWE fans, because imagine the cleansing they would do with the past content.
Oh, yeah.
The Attitude Era would just be wiped out.
They would
go and sanitize everything.
Yeah, that would be my concern. And I don't know how bad NBC is for doing that. So I'm hoping they don't go through the network, because now somebody else has got the power. They go through, okay, that Attitude Era shit's got to go. That slightly controversial racial statement's got to go. That guy can't touch that girl that way. That's got to go. So let's hope they don't start fucking around with that.
I mean, it would take a lot of work to sanitize all that much wrestling content, but if any company on earth has the manpower to do it, or person power.
There you go.
Non-binary, gender, non-specific entity power. It's Disney. But I don't know. That's why get physical media, people. If you want a movie and you want to watch it forever without it being fucked with, buy the Blu-ray, buy the DVDs.
Yes, that's why I keep the Simpsons DVDs.
Don't trust the streaming services.
That's why...
If you want to watch Stark Raving Dad from Season 3 of The Simpsons, you're not going to find it on Hulu, but I can go watch it on DVD if I want.
Yeah, that's why all the wrestling stuff, I still watch the old stuff. I still watch my old taped off TV versions. I don't watch the network versions. It's nice to have them all nice and clean.
Yep.
And what actually is really cool, somebody's doing on my Wrestling Torrent site, is they're downloading the network versions and then redubbing the audio over them. So you got the nice, clean-looking network with the old music and commentary dubbed in, and then if there was something cut out of the network, they just splice it back in.
They splice the old footage back in?
So it might go from like new to old for a minute, but at least you still have everything. So you get the nice benefit of the clean, crisp
That's pretty cool.
redo. I mean, that's probably very time-consuming.
Oh, God. Some wrestling fan has no life, but thank God for them.
Yeah. So I haven't watched too many of those. I still just watch the original versions, but it is kind of nice to see those nice, cleaned-up versions. So.
Before we get into our main content, while we're still on the subject of wrestling, you've pretty much cut a lot of wrestling out of your life, haven't you?
Fuck, I trimmed my diet way the fuck down.
So what do you still watch?
Well, that's the funny thing is I still watch just as much. I just don't watch
the
different
variety.
things. So I still watch Raw, half-assed in the background because it's boring as shit.
Yeah.
I still watch SmackDown. It's okay. It's gotten better. It's gotten all right. Roman Reigns is now doing a really good heel run with Paul Heyman, which I'm enjoying. There's some decent matches, but it's not even close to being perfect. But it's a 2-hour show, so it's easier to watch without commercials, hour and 20. Raw is just fucking tedious. NXT, it's okay. It's not as good as it used to be. It's 2 hours now. It's a little blander. I think part of the problem they're running into is, A, there's meddling now from Vince and the network, like the USA Network, and B, they've kind of drained the major indie talent scene dry. So when it was like a big deal to have Samoa Joe and Kevin Steen and Shinsuke Nakamura and Bobby Roode and all those guys come in, Finn Balor, it was huge for having all those guys come in, but now that's kind of been drained. So who's left out there that you're going to go, oh my God, they finally got him.
Yeah.
So there's that problem. That's all I watch now. I cut out AEW because it's just fucking nonsense. It's ridiculous. It's dumb.
Were you big on AEW when they first started?
Not really.
No, you never were?
I gave it a chance because it was an alternative.
That's
all it is.
What's their number one problem if they have a number one problem?
non-coherent storylines.
WWE has that.
But it's really bad with them.
Okay.
Because you got some fan booking, the whole thing basically. And every match is nothing but high spots.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like the X Division in TNA.
Right. But at least with the early X Division, there was some coherency to it. These guys are just doing 1,000 crazy moves, and then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, one of them gets pinned. It's not the crazy high spot death move that you're doing on the fucking concrete ramp. No, it's just some random move that ends it all. But the straw that broke the camel's back for me was Jericho and MJF doing this song and dance Broadway number. I'm like, no.
You made me watch that, and as a very casual wrestling fan, I kind of got a kick out of it. Well, plus I'm also a fan of musicals, so I kind of got a kick out of it. But I can see why you would hate it.
But how am I supposed to suspend disbelief when you got two heels just basically sitting there and doing this goofy shit?
Yeah, it's like a musical. They did a musical episode.
It's like the whole show is dedicated to smart fans. So everything is a big ha-ha, wink, wink. That's
all
the
ironic.
whole show.
They're doing it ironically.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're just making fun of the business. And I'm just like, well, I can't get into this. It doesn't, I like to lose myself in it. I know it's all the work. But if I'm watching Arnold Schwarzenegger in a movie and every 5 minutes he's winking to the camera going, ah, like Deadpool got away with it a couple times in the movie. But if every movie you watched from that movie company were doing that, you just like, you know what, fuck it, I don't want to see
it. Gets old very quickly.
Yes.
Tell me if this is
wears off.
Yeah.
Tell me if this is a good analogy. It's akin to watching bad movies where you watch The Room, where it was made with an attempt to be a great movie and it turned out to be shit, versus watching Sharknado, which is made ironically to be a bad movie.
Yes.
It's more fun to watch The Room because there was an earnest intention to make a good product behind it.
Yeah, and now
analogy.
Yeah, and now I'm watching Sharknado 20.
Yeah.
Why am I watching Sharknado 20?
Which
Sharknado 1 was all right.
Wink, wink. This is so bad, right? Wink, wink. It's like you'd rather watch someone try to be good and fail than try to watch someone be bad and succeed.
And growing,
I heard somebody say this recently. Plan 9 from Outer Space would not be funny if they tried to make it as a genuine comedy.
No, absolutely not. The fact I've seen Plan 9 from Outer Space quite a few times, and the thing that makes it good is he was really trying to make an actual horror movie, and Ed Wood failed worse than anybody has ever failed until Tommy Wiseau came along.
Yeah.
That's why that movie is fun to watch. Oh, yeah.
Now, this might be a generational thing, because I am substantially old now. But when I watch AEW, it's 90% small little guys that look like they got bullied in high school. This is who's running the company now. It's all little...
You're saying I have a future there?
There you go. You're fucking main event, brother. Actually, you might be too big.
Funny thing,
I want you to look these guys up if you haven't seen them before, Schweitzer, and you can pull them up too.
Sure.
The Young Bucks.
I've heard you mention the Young Bucks.
Look at these guys. These are your tag champions. These are your executive vice presidents. Can you take them seriously? In a division, okay. Now think back to the tag divisions that I watched. Like, okay, yes, the Hardys were small. These guys are smaller than the fucking Hardys.
I was just gonna bring up. They remind me of the Hardy Boys.
Look up Kenny Omega.
Yeah. Maybe it's hard to tell from pictures. They don't look too bad. I mean, he's in decent shape.
He's in decent shape, but he's tiny. Then there's Marco Stunt. There's fucking Orange Cassidy. It's like, as a guy who's been watching wrestling for 30, 35 years, and I'm not even just talking the roided up guys. I'm going to be talking guys like Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart.
This Marco Stunt guy looks like he's 12 years old.
Yeah.
To be fair, okay, all these people you just mentioned, they all kind of look the same. They all kind of have the same build, the same look. If these are the top guys in the company, they all pretty much look the same.
But then they have other guys like Chris Jericho and Brian Cage and Lance Archer. And
Chris Jericho is on the Elvis on the toilet stage of his career.
Oh my God.
I saw a clip. I saw a clip of Jericho recently trying to do a lion salt. It looked terrible.
Right.
Oh, man, look at this.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's a legend too. This guy's I think one of the most entertaining wrestlers in history.
He's given up. Like, he went from, like, let's bring him in and he's going to be the top heel to being just a joke now. Like,
he's there for a paycheck.
I can't take him seriously now, and he's botching shit left and right, and he's so bloated and out of shape, and he's just a complete goof now. Like, it was so bad that
gone from a little bit of the bubbly to a little bit of the man boobs.
The chubbly.
A little bit of a chubbly.
So they're on the TNT network, and they also, that's where the NBA does their playoffs and have a bunch of games. So they got preempted for an hour or two until the NBA playoff games were over. So now, if you're somebody like WWE and your leading is the playoffs, you're going to bring your fucking A game, right? You're going to bring everything like, oh my God, we have a chance to bring all these new people on board, or people who gave up on wrestling 15, 20 years ago and went to UFC or other sports to come back and say, holy shit, we can hook these guys with what we're doing. What is the first thing they see when the NBA playoffs end and they decide to stick around? They see fat, out-of-shape, winded Jericho doing some dumb shit. You should have seen the fucking NBA Twitter feed. They lit him up. Lit him up. Like, see, this is not helping you guys. This is what this company is. You're a fucking joke. First of all, people were like, oh my God, Chris Jericho's still wrestling, and then they're making, like, fat dad jokes and all this other shit. It's like, what the hell happened to this fucking guy? And then everybody's like, what the fuck is AEW? What is this discount WWE rip-off shit? Then there's like, people are posting memes like what you got when you ordered on Amazon. It's like a picture of Chris Jericho from like 2020, and then from 2000, and then the new one's like the Wish version of Chris Jericho.
Mom, can we get Chris Jericho? We have Chris Jericho at home. Chris Jericho at home. Yeah. I can imagine that's one of them.
So, for me, who's been just watching wrestling for so long, I just can't take anything you're doing seriously. And it just got so frustrating. And I tried, and I tried, and I tried. And there's some guys with some good potential, but most of these guys would benefit from a really good developmental or training program, because a lot of these guys are either just fresh off the indies or they're backyard wrestlers.
Yeah.
So, which is great. As a minor league talent feeding system, it's not a bad place for them to have their showcase. But as somebody who's watched all this shit, it's like, if you sent a lot of these guys to NXT and then they trickled back into the market and they came back with some training, hey, you can build a solid company on that. TNA did it for a while until they turned to complete shit.
You mentioned backyard wrestling, and I just recalled the last thing you made me watch at AEW, which was that big schmoz that took place in the football field.
Oh, yeah.
And that gave me really strong backyard wrestling vibes, because it was just completely uncoordinated and all over the place, and it was embarrassing. Have you seen that, Schweitzer?
No,
What was it called, Bubs?
I believe it was a Stadium Stampede or something.
Stadium Stampede. Basically, all the AEW wrestlers got onto a football field and just started like beating each other up. But it's one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen in wrestling. And that's saying a lot.
It just sounds incredibly disorganized. Like you don't know what you would focus on.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
There was no script. There was no, we're going to do this. There was no moves. It's just, well, I guess we'll just fight. It was like improv wrestling.
Oh.
But without a ring. It was so bad. I could not believe it. It was like one of the worst things I've ever seen in wrestling.
It was like somebody doing like suplexes all the way down the whole football field. Somebody run a thing, the chalk-out line over somebody else. There was a thing where a guy fell into a freezer and came out as somebody else. There was a fucking pool where Matt Hardy fell in and came out as another character. It was just so fucking ridiculous. It's like, rein it in, boys. Rein it the fuck in. Either we're a wrestling company or we're a goofy showbiz company. And if that's the way you're going with it, then fine. If you want to be just video game characters having matches, again, that's what you want to be, then be that. It's the Young Bucks are not guys wrestling a match. They're video game characters who have hit points and whatever until they run out of power. That's what you're doing, fine. Not for me.
Is Ring of Honor still around?
Barely.
Barely.
Barely. I
haven't heard of them in years.
Ring of Honor in years and years.
What about Lucha Underground?
Lucha Underground's dead.
They're done?
Yep, they're done.
They were great for
There were a lot of contract issues with them.
Oh, okay.
They were just fucking people over. So Impact's still going. It's bland. It's boring. It's ridiculously stupid. They're in a partnership now with AEW, so there's a bit of a talent exchange there, and they're doing back and forth stuff, but it's just not enough for me to give a shit about it. Mm-hmm. The last Impact episode I watched was a fucking murderer mystery of who shot Johnny Bravo, and tossed back out of shape, embarrassingly always crying Tommy Dreamer, going, no! over his shot body. I'm like, no, I'm fucking done. This is worse than research.
I saw a clip of Jim Cornette talking about Tommy Dreamer in that whole angle. It sounded embarrassing.
Tommy Dreamer used to fucking stop. Just fucking stop. He should have stopped 10 years ago. Like, promote, do some shit like that. Like, get the fuck out of the ring. You're fucking embarrassing yourself. And you cry all the fucking time. Like, oh, I didn't play for this band, just for us, WCW. Holy fuck, it was embarrassing when you did it 25 years ago in ECW. At least it kind of meant something back then. Holy fuck. Just stop. And I stopped watching NXT UK because it's just boring.
Yeah.
So, I basically just watched the 3 WWE shows, and that's it. And I watch a lot of really old stuff. I've been working my way through WWF in the 80s. I started right at the fucking beginning as much as I could find. Went through some 60s, some 70s stuff, and now I'm at 1985. I'm about a week before WrestleMania, the first one, watching all the build-up.
I've been feeling kind of a similar way about, TV and movies and stuff where there's nothing new coming out that I want, but it doesn't really bother me that much because I've got 100 years of old stuff to watch. Like, I've seen a lot of movies in my life. I've probably not even seen 1% of all the movies there are. So it doesn't really bother me. If they could stop making movies now and I could still watch them until I die, and I'll be fine. I don't know. That's my cynical view on entertainment right now.
I'm the same way too. Like, fuck, why is there like a Netflix Classic Edition or something? Buy up all these fucking old sitcoms.
I've been saying that for years.
And just put them out there. Same with the movies and everything. Just because I remember seeing at Walmart, my buddy bought a couple of them, these DVDs, little box sets of DVDs with probably like 50 old movies, black and white, sci-fi movies, monster movies.
They're usually really cheap,
and
shitty.
They're fucking cheap. Some of them were shitty.
Yeah.
But why not get the rights to those and throw them on a streaming service? So throw them on a wing of Netflix and just, because it can't be that fucking expensive for them to get the rights to this shit.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people would, with nothing else to do and no new shit coming out, they'd probably sit there and watch it and sit around with their buddies and joke about it.
There's not even bad stuff. There's probably tons of classic TV shows and movies that just nobody remembers.
I can't find the show Night Court on any streaming service. That was a great fucking show. A lot of people love that show. It is a good show. Why is it not even on Peacock? It's an NBC show.
Yeah. You got to get on VHS tape called Lightning Fast VCR Repair.
That's it.
Speaking of, a new Best of the Worst is up.
Oh, really? Oh, shit.
Punketto.
Oh, my God. Well, that's the episode for this week, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We got to go. That's cool. I definitely want to.
But I watched that. Yeah, I watched that Wonder Woman 84 review they did, and they were
Josh
talking
isn't
about,
on it. Oh, yes.
Talking about Night Court, and it's like, I fucking agree with Plinkett. I fucking love Night Court. I think they even on DVD. I think they only put out like 1 or 2 seasons.
There are, I have them both. There's 2 seasons on DVD. You know what show's never made it on DVD completely? The Drew Carey Show.
Yeah.
They only ever released the first season.
I don't get it.
But I don't know if it's. That was on ABC, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe it's available on streaming somewhere. I don't know. I don't think so. But there's a lot of great shows. What about Mama's Family?
What about
I want to watch Mama's Family.
There's people that would watch it.
What is that? WB owns that, I think.
Do they?
I think so. But anyway.
I remember it aired on the WB 20, like in reruns, but I think it may have been an NBC or CBS show.
Oh, really? Well, it doesn't matter. The point is, there's a lot of shows out there that you just can't see anymore.
So unless they're jacking up, the companies are jacking up the price to release these things, I don't know why they're all just not on some classic network where you can just binge watch them all.
Well, that is the problem with a lot of these streaming services. It's rights acquisitions are complicated.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes there'll be shows or movies where like 3 different studios own it. Like there's joint ownership and things, and it gets complicated.
And then with a show like Drew Carey, and I'll give you a really good example, is WKRP in Cincinnati, where you have
That's
music rights.
licensing. Yeah.
So you can watch WKRP in Cincinnati on DVD, but it's shit because all the original songs are taken out of it, and you just got a bunch of generic bullshit.
Yeah.
But sometimes some of those songs are very integral to what's going on with the plot or some of the jokes.
Mm-hmm.
So
one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and I'm very glad that I have all the episodes downloaded because I don't think you can watch it anywhere, is All in the Family, which I think is still one of the best TV shows ever made.
Yep.
And you can't watch it anywhere.
No.
Probably because it would be pulled off the air as soon as anyone under 20 years old watched it. But
they wouldn't understand the meaning of it. Really, because there's a valid point on that show. It's not just, hey, let's watch Archie Bunker the racist. It's he learns things and people shred him for the way he is. And
this is a tangent. I've always wanted to either write an essay or make a video essay or something, but I've always had this thought that Archie Bunker, this is what I would title it if I wrote this essay, Archie Bunker never learned anything from Meathead yelling at him. And he did. I've seen all the episodes many times. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. Archie did change and soften throughout the series on a lot of things. He never, became, he never was not a bigot, but he softened on a lot of things.
Woke.
Right, right. But he never learned a lesson because people yelled at him. He learned a lesson because usually it's from talking to somebody of that group that he doesn't like, and realizing, oh, they're actually a nice person. Maybe I was a little bit wrong. Before George Jefferson moved out to the deluxe apartment in the sky, Archie and him weren't friends, but they got along.
Lionel always set him straight on it because Lionel was like one of the nicest guys to him.
Yeah.
And then he saw how Lionel was, or Lionel would make like an offhand joke or something to him, and then they would kind of teach Archie Bunker a little lesson in that.
There was an episode, I remember the name of the episode, it's called Lionel Steps Out, where Lionel is dating Archie's niece. And Archie finds out about it and goes berserk. And Lionel brings him into the kitchen. They have this little sit-down talk where he says to Archie, I remember the words. He says, now we're friends and we can go on being friends. But these notions you have about white and black, you got to cut that out. Or basically that. Mm-hmm. And Archie, he realizes, well, he is a friend of Lionel and he doesn't completely change his mind, but he softens on it because Lionel sat down and told him. There's so many good messages in that show about, it is fun to laugh at Archie being racist, of course, but there's also a lot of good messages about, about tolerance and understanding, about how to treat people you disagree with, and loving someone despite disagreeing with them. One of the saddest things, this is a huge tangent, but one of the saddest moments on TV is when the Stivics move out of the Bunker's house. Mike has this really touching heart-to-heart with Archie where he says, I know you always hated me, Archie, but you were like a father to me. I know we always fought, but, I love you. And there's a really sweet moment where you realize that all these two did was argue and fight, but they were still very important to each other. And, I think that's a brilliant show, and I really wish, going back to the original point, I wish you could actually watch it on a streaming service, and I don't know, maybe some people would get some knowledge from it.
Learning to just talk to each other and understanding other people's point of view and what they went through, as opposed to just yelling and screaming and calling each other racist and hateful things. Yeah.
There's a great episode where Archie and Mike get locked in the basement of Kelsey's bar and they get drunk and they talk about their childhoods, and Archie talks about how he was bullied and abused by his father, and you get a really good insight into how Archie Bunker became Archie Bunker, because his father was a massive racist, and that carried on into Archie, who idolized his father and wanted to be like him, and you learn where that comes from, and then Mike earns a little bit more respect for Archie because he sees where all this came from. I think that's really important to learn these days.
Now the attitude is, okay, Boomer, drop dead. We're so glad when your generation's dead and gone,
right?
Because that's just gonna fix everything.
Which I think is a disgusting point of view.
Absolutely, it is.
But anyway, that's my big fucking tangent on
supposed
on
to
the
be
family.
about TNG.
Well, I guess that brings us into the meat of the show.
Well, now we have to talk about Discovery because they're teaching us valuable lessons about race and relations.
Yeah. I just barely touched my PC and my monitor now. There we go.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, now I'm getting feedback on my speakers. Hold on.
I'm actually watching and I know we'll talk about it later, but I'm actually watching a sci-fi show that's nice, refreshing, doesn't dumb shit down, and oh my god, a diverse cast.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't beat you over the head with it. And they don't try to shoehorn 21st century slang. And
The Expanse, right?
Yes, I love it. It's so good.
I'm currently watching like 3 different shows right now, but that's one, the description you had of it last week made it sound kind of interesting. I might check that out eventually.
Yeah, I'm almost to the end of season 2 now.
So I didn't mention at the top of the show, but big surprise, our main topic this episode is Star Trek. Oh my god. It's like
nobody talks about it.
Exactly. I recently finished a rewatch of all of the Star Trek The Next Generation from the first episode to the last one.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it might be fun for us to talk about our favorite and least favorite Star Trek Next Generation episodes.
All right.
So I've asked you guys to make a top 5 and a bottom 5 list, and I think we should just we'll all go through our top 5 lists, and then we'll go through our bottom 5.
Sure.
And I'm not going to spend too long because this episode will be 3 hours long if we just get on Star Trek
and
tangents.
We don't need to go too long on each episode because everybody's seen them, everybody knows them. So I mean, we kind of describe why we like them in a few details, but we're not going to go crazy, I don't think, right? Yeah.
So I'll start off first with my top 5 list, which, part of it was a little bit of a surprise because there's a couple on there which I've always found to be my favorite episodes, but there are a couple that I really, really loved more than I used to on this recent watch through. My number 5 is an episode from season 4 called The Wounded.
Oh.
That's the one where Chief O'Brien's former captain goes on this vendetta against the Cardassians. He's like going through Cardassian space and blowing up Cardassian ships. And I like it a lot because it's a really kind of smart and fair story about hatred born of war and also of racism. But it's done from a perspective where, and I'm sure Schweitzer knows the name of the captain, the guy Maxwell. Bob Gunton plays him. He's definitely a villain of the episode. He's doing bad, but at the end of the episode, there's this really nice moment where Chief O'Brien beams onto his ship, and they talk about it. They talk about their experiences during the war, and you see that this guy, he's a racist. He hates Cardassians, and he doesn't trust them. He wants to pay them back for the horrors that he saw during the war and what they did to him. I think they killed his son, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was his son.
Yeah.
Yeah, his family was killed at Setlik 3, if I recall.
Yeah. And he talks about that, and you get to see that, like, hatred doesn't just come from nowhere. It comes from a place, but the episode never justifies what he does. It never makes you look at him as sympathetic, because he is murdering, he is doing evil, but you see where it comes from, and it's handled in a really smart and even-handed way, and I really appreciate that kind of writing.
Do you know what I like about TNG, and I'm going to use this episode as an example? They don't toss around the word racist. I
don't think they ever say the word
They almost never do. And the reason why I like that they don't just drop the racist bomb on this captain is because when you think of a racist in general, it's basically by definition is you think you're supreme to every other race.
Yeah.
That's not what he is.
I would argue there's more definitions to racism, but that's
but in general, that's basically like when they say it about white people, they say white people they hate every other race because they're racially supremacist. But if you look at this guy, it doesn't fit that definition because he's not saying, I hate Klingons, I think what Federation people are better, I hate Romulans, I hate Ferengi, I hate all these people. In fact, they've probably never showed any ill will towards any of those other species. He legitimately does not like Cardassians for a very valid reason. Not saying it's right as to why he doesn't like them, but he doesn't like them because they were at war and he went through some horrible, traumatic things with them. So I'm so happy, and if this was Discovery, they'd be tossing that fucking word around everywhere. But they didn't once say he was racist. They didn't say once that he was a supremacist or anything else like that. He's saying it's basically his views are, while understandable, they're wrong towards the Cardassian people, and that was handled very well in this.
His actions are I would say they're portrayed as understandable but not justifiable.
Right.
Which is the strongest part of TNG is really smart writing.
And if anything, it kind of goes to show how hard things are to deal with in a post-war world, where maybe it needs, like, maybe this guy got put back into service before there was any counseling done, or any maybe he's still going through shell shock, or some whatever other things that this guy is still dealing with from the war that's never been. So you could almost look like it as kind of a pro. Hey, we need to maybe take care of our own after a war, of our veterans and our soldiers as a mental health issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot that could be gained from the episode. Mm-hmm. It's also the first time that Chief O'Brien really gets a main role in an episode.
And I think this
felt like this episode is an audition for Deep Nine.
I was going to say that,
Kind of.
Like, this is his audition. I was like, oh, let's let him step up, give him that part. He did really well. It's like, okay, now we're going to do DS9, and this character's got some layers.
Yeah. Yeah. A fantastic episode. My number 4 is from season 6. It's a two-parter, but I'm counting two-parters as one episode, because fuck you.
Me too.
My number 4 is Chain of Command. Not a big surprise. It's obviously viewed as one of the best episodes among many
put that
fans.
in my list, but yeah.
I love, the whole thing with Captain Picard, and there are 4 lights, and it's the David Warner as the Cardassian who's trying to break him is just, it's chilling, and it's an amazing performance by Patrick Stewart. I love Captain Jellicoe. I love how he comes aboard the Enterprise, and he's basically the complete opposite of Picard, and he really butts heads with Riker, and even soft-hearted Troy doesn't outwardly fight with him, but you could tell she really doesn't like him. Mm-hmm. But then when it comes to the situation where he has to deal with the Cardassians, even though he's kind of hard-headed, he knows exactly what he's doing. He needs to get done what he needs to get done, and he's not soft about it. He's very forward and commanding and strict, but he gets the job done.
He's like a brilliant doctor with no bedside manner.
Dr. House. He's like the House of TNG.
Sure, yeah. It's like he'll come in, he'll tell you what's wrong, he'll tell you how he's going to fix you, and you pretty much guarantee that he's going to make you better. You're going to come out of it. But he's not going to coddle you. He probably won't answer your questions. And he's not going to smile. He's just going to say, this is what we're doing. This is how I'm going to do it. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's it.
And there's one moment I'll always remember, because where Jellicoe is totally right, is the moment where he brings Troy into the ready room, and he talks to her, and then as she leaves, like, oh, and by the way, counselor, put on a uniform.
Right.
You're a fucking Starfleet officer. Throw out the unitard and put on a fucking
I'm sorry.
uniform.
You're not a ballerina. You're a counselor.
You're a bridge officer.
Yes.
Until that episode, or there might have been another episode where they mentioned it, I didn't even realize what her rank was.
She doesn't realize what her rank was, because in Disaster, Chief O'Brien has to tell her.
She has been out of uniform so long and doesn't have the pips.
Yes.
They're like, oh, she's a fucking commander?
I love that moment in Disaster where Chief O'Brien's like, technically Troy's in charge because she holds the rank of Lieutenant Commander, and it cuts to Troy and she's like, oh yeah. And she doesn't even know her rank. I love that.
I never understood that. I never understood why she has a chair on the bridge.
Why is she even on the bridge?
Right.
Oh, I don't want to get on a tangent on TNG nitpicks, but through this watch-through of TNG, this bothered the hell out of me. And they do it all the time. When the Enterprise meets a ship in space, and the other ship captain is talking to them, and then they cut communications. So often, Picard will turn to Troy, and Troy will be like, "Oh, I sense that he was lying, Captain, or he was not telling the truth." When two ships talk to each other in space, they're millions of kilometers away.
Right, yeah.
There's no, do all Betazoids, can they all read, they're all the minds of everyone else on the planet on Beta's end? I think that the writers forget that, just because two people talk on the view screen, they're actually millions of kilometers away.
Right.
There's no way Troy could sense emotions from that far.
So then how does telepathy work, and how does all that work? Because full beta sets can read other people's thoughts, but do you have to be close to them to do it?
Yeah.
Can thoughts be sent over a communication? Now, I could understand that maybe because she's empathic, she's better at looking at somebody's face or their eye movements
she can tell from
or
body
language.
That's a very good point.
But you can train a lot of people, so maybe she's more tuned into that. But you're right; they do use that very liberally.
Yeah, I know. But
I forgive because they don't. They do it all right.
It's like the universal translator. It's fine. Whatever. It
Just go with it, Captain.
It doesn't make any sense, but we have a show to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, one other quick point, uniform Troy is a lot hotter than jumpsuit Troy. At least that's my personal fetish.
I liked the pilot episode where she was in uniform, but she was wearing skirt.
The skirt? Yeah. Skirt uniform Troy is pretty cool.
And I hate that they got rid of that so quickly and abruptly. It's I understand not making it mandatory for women.
There were men in those skirts.
I know.
Yeah.
But they should have at least busted it out every once in a while, at least as a formal
dress
thing
uniform.
or a casual or an optional thing. You know what? I feel skirty today.
At least make Ensign Hawk wear one once.
Right. Oh my.
Admiral Sulu's.
That's right.
He'd wear a full ball gown.
You're my yeoman today. As in yeoman. Get it?
Yeoman Rand, as in Yeoman, I'm Randy.
Right.
That's a deep cut.
That's
right. Anyway, let's continue on. My number 3 episode from season 5 is another classic. Everyone loves this episode. Is Darmok.
It's on my list.
Which is a really fun episode. I love the concept of two people whose languages are so vastly different that the universal translators can't pick them up. Mm-hmm. Basically, one of them forces both of them into a dire situation to kind of force them to learn to communicate. And I really like the little touch that they say, what were the names of the species?
I
don't remember.
I cannot remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either, but they say in the episode that many people from the Federation have met them before and nobody's been able to understand them, but Picard is the one that works it out, because of course he is. Because Picard's greatest strength as a leader is communication, and he works hard to understand them, and he does it. I love
the Temerians.
Well, not only is he's a great communicator, but I would think almost his background in archaeology would help him out on that, because he understands that throughout history, a lot of races and species and all that communicated differently than just using straight up basic language.
It is a very interesting idea for a language, one that's based entirely off of metaphor and reference to past events, and that's why the universal translator can't translate it. It can translate the words, but not what the words mean in context with each other. I think that's a brilliant concept.
And you're actually surprised that doesn't happen more often. I mean, even look just Japanese to English. It's so much different. You look at a title of a show, it's just so much different because just the way they describe things is...
A lot of older Japanese kanji, symbols are based on drawings. I don't think they use that anymore, but ancient Chinese, the symbol... I remember because one of my favorite books is Shogun, and it's about ancient Japan. The symbol for disharmony is a man and a woman and a pig in a house or whatever, because that was seen as if you have your wife and a pig in the same house, it'll be disharmonious or whatever. So that's what the drawing of that word was, kind of thing. So yeah, you're right. There are multiple cultures who should have that problem. I do think it's a little bit weak that they just fight a rubber monster at the end. It's a little bit. If I were to put anything against the episode, it would be that. But I really like the episode. I don't think there's anything more to say. Just great concept, great acting. I love the scene at the end where Picard shows up on the bridge and shows them the dagger. Yeah. And I mean, I can't remember what he says, but as soon as he shows the dagger, the other Temerians kind of like know, like, oh, he was successful. I love, that's a great moment. When Picard shows up on the ships and talks to them in their own language. Great. And number 2, and this one surprised me, but on this rewatch, I ended up really, really loving this episode. I think it might be the best acting I've ever seen in the series, which is the season 3 episode Sarek.
Yeah.
Mark Leonard as Sarek is so great in that episode. He portrays a man slowly losing control of his faculties and his dignity, especially someone from a race as proud as the Vulcans. He portrays that so fantastically, and Picard alternatively portrays a man who is meeting his idol, but his idol at his worst, his idol is failing, and he has to help him. I love that theme. There's a great moment, maybe one of my favorite moments in all of TNG, where Picard is confronting Sarek with his knowledge that he has this degenerative disease. I don't remember what it's called. And Sarek is like facing away from the camera, and Picard is like goading him to lose control of his emotions. He's like not taunting him, but really pushing him and talking really fast, trying to get him to lose composure. And the shot is framed so perfectly where Picard is just barely out of focus in the background, and Mark Leonard is like in a medium shot facing the camera, so you can see the frustration and the anger and the emotion build on this Vulcan's face, and it's so great. The performances are so excellent. And the other performance I love is later in the episode where they do the mind meld, and Sarek puts all of his emotions into Picard, and Picard is just sitting there in the darkness with Beverly, just letting go of emotions that aren't even his. Like, he's crying about wanting to... The moment that almost makes me cry is when he is experiencing Sarek's desire to tell his wife that he loves her, but he can't because he's Vulcan.
He wanted to show her such tenderness, and he couldn't. Yeah.
Exactly. That tugs at my heartstrings so much. And the whole shot is kind of in darkness, and there's like a 180 camera movement where it starts on Picard's left side, and it slowly turns around to the right to just completely capture every amount of acting on Patrick Stewart's face. It's so fucking brilliant.
I think it hits you, and I know from somebody who's getting older and somebody who has an older father who thankfully has not gone through this yet.
Yeah.
But I really think it's an eye-opener for what people go through with parents with dementia and Parkinson's disease. And so it's not only... Not Parkinson's. Is it Parkinson's? Yeah.
Oh, Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's, yes. Thank you. So what they're basically, they're losing control of themselves. They're losing touch with reality. They're losing all their faculties and all. And he's like watching somebody he idolizes go through this.
Yeah.
And it's like watching your father, who you thought was like the strongest representation of a man in your life, just completely fall apart. But not only that is, and this is something we don't get the gift of, is he gets to basically feel and experience everything that Sarek repressed.
Yeah.
You know, all of a sudden, all those, as men do, all those repressed feelings and thoughts and unsaid things that have been bottled up and kept inside are now being downloaded to Picard, and he's experiencing that all at once. And that's just, to me, that's just fucking amazing.
And it's even more intense that it's a Vulcan, and we know that Vulcans, I think Tuvok says it in Voyager, that not only Vulcans do have emotions, but they have very intense emotions.
Right.
They just suppress them. So it's that magnified by 10 because it's a Vulcan. And a Vulcan who's, probably 150 years old, who's had...
Older than that. He's in the TOS episode Journey to Babel. I think they say he's something like 111 years old.
Yeah. So
he's got to be like close to 250 at this point.
So imagine getting all that stuff that your dad's never said or is repressed or never told you, and all those feelings just suddenly downloaded to you.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Jesus Christ.
And it's so well acted by Patrick Stewart. He goes from crying to angry to laughing. Like, he experiences the complete range of emotion in that scene, and it's so good.
And then what makes it even more interesting is and I'm pretty sure this is the episode, is unification. when
guys or
Picard
something.
gets to meld with Spock
Yeah.
and transfer all of that
Mm-hmm.
to him.
Yeah. Unification's almost feels like kind of almost like a direct sequel to that episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my number 2 episode. I don't think it's often brought up in best episode lists, but I could rewatch it a million times. I love the performances.
Mm-hmm.
So I think before I reveal my number 1, I think the 2 strongest things in TNG are the performances and the writing. And I think Sarek is the top tier of performances for episodes. And my number 1, I think, is the top tier for writing. And it's not a controversial pick. I'm sure you guys will probably mention it. My number 1 is Measure of a Man. It's always been my number 1 before this rewatch. It was my number 1, and I have to say I still absolutely love it. I think it's a perfect episode. The writing is so solid. The script, the plot is so simple. I mean, almost all of it takes place in like 10 forward or the conference room or the bridge. They don't go anywhere. The whole episode is just this conflict between 2 opposing ideologies with Data in the middle. I love the courtroom stuff. I love Riker begrudgingly prosecuting Data. I love the fact that when he goes over to Data and like he's about to take off his arm to prove his point, he says sorry. He apologized to Data for not only he's going to violate his bodily autonomy, but he's sorry because he knows this is a really good point I'm about to make, and I could ruin your chances of coming out of this,
right,
of being vindicated. He says he's sorry
he's
before
exploiting
he does
the
it.
weakness.
Yeah. I love the fact that there's no villain in the episode. I don't view Brad Maddox as a villain.
No.
He's an antagonist for sure, but he's one where I don't agree with his opinion, but it makes sense. I can see where he's coming from, and he's not even malicious about it. He's not like, I'm going to get that android's brain and I'm going to dissect it and make my own race of androids. He just wants to study it. Mm-hmm. And Data's uncomfortable with it because he doesn't trust that Maddox can do it safely.
Right.
There's no
He doesn't
villain.
believe Maddox is advanced enough yet to do what Singh did, where essentially he's got to be able to take them apart and put them back together. Because even at the end of the episode, he's like, hey, you know what? I like your work. I want to hear more about it. I will send you stuff. Correspond with me, and whatever you need to know, I'll be happy to do it, and we'll work together.
And he does. In Data's day, the whole thing is him composing this log to Brad Maddox talking about his life. Mm-hmm. He kept in contact with Maddox to try to help him. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, and well, you also have... there was also that scene in 10 Forward where Guinan's like, there have always been disposable creatures, and Picard realizes, wait a minute, if we have armies of Datas, these are sentient life forms, this is just slavery. Mm-hmm. A scene which was completely undone by Star Trek Picard. Good job.
And that's one of the... I think Star Trek Picard actually makes this episode even better in the fact that it shows how good the writing was compared to what the bullshit that came out of Star Trek Picard.
Yeah.
And it just shone a brighter light on how good this episode is. Another, I think, very big positive of this episode, because you said this is season 2, right?
2.
So this is probably 88, 89?
89, I think, yeah.
So you had a lot of sci-fi movies and stories come out where basically it's like we've created an army of robots, and then some of them go sentient, out of the Terminator, where it becomes sentient and immediately turns on its creators. And a lot of Asimov and other sci-fi writers have done that. But nobody's really sat down and done the debate like this. Whereas, should we? Could we? And what is the ramifications of not just, it's going to turn on us and murder us all, but what are the ramifications to it itself? Yeah. Like, you've now made a sentient life, a la creating a child, which means you now have to give it choices. Mm-hmm. So is it unrestricted sentience, or is it restricted? And I think that's what this episode does brilliantly, that no other sci-fi, and to my knowledge,
that I've ever seen,
maybe it has has done that and actually had the conversation like this.
Yeah, in a very smart, intelligent way,
yeah.
with not a single gun being fired,
Yes,
no
yes.
ships explode.
Not an army of datas coming at the Federation who are disgruntled and going, oh, we're going to get them because they treated us like shit. Let's fuck them up. Like, no, it was a courtroom setting where they sat down and debated what is data.
Yeah.
Fucking brilliant.
I think it's the most well-written episode of maybe any Star Trek ever. It's certainly in my top 5 for all Star Trek episodes. So, yeah, that's my number 1 measure of a man. Who wants to go next?
Oh, I will.
Okay, Schweitzer.
Okay, well, it's funny, because you were just mentioning it, but number 5 is the follow-up to Measure of a Man, and that's Data's Day.
Mm-hmm. Great episode.
Data, where basically we see a 24-hour period in life on the Enterprise. Data is in command of the night shift, and like you never see that very often. Like you always cut to the bridge and everybody's there at their station, but it's like these people have to sleep eventually. But there's so many things that happen in this episode. The defection of the Vulcan ambassador, or supposedly Vulcan ambassador, the marriage between Chief O'Brien and Keiko. I don't know. It's just fun to see things from his perspective. He learns to dance from Beverly Crusher.
Oh, yeah. I like that scene.
That scene where he's dancing with a holographic partner and he just gives that smile.
I love that scene because Gates McFadden is a talented dancer, so you see her in full frame dancing, and then they cut to Data, and it's just a shot of his feet. Yeah. But it's obviously not Brent Spiner dancing.
Yeah.
So that always makes me laugh.
Yeah.
When you get to the reasons why you're done, why you like this, I really want to talk about this whole shift thing.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Obviously, there's no night in space, but they need 2 different shifts.
No, and I understand. Okay, well, 2 or 3.
2
right?
or 3, yeah.
So, but the question is, what is the actual like? What time zone on what planet are they basing this on?
Well,
what is the shift rotation? Because not every planet does the 24-hour thing.
I imagine that
6 hours on Bajor.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I imagine that it's probably a bit like a submarine. Submarines operate on an 18-hour day.
Okay.
And so each shift is 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine it like you do 6 hours of your duty shift, 6 hours of recreation study, and then 6 hours rest. And that's how they do it. Now, I don't know if that's exactly how they do it in the Federation. They never go into that much detail with it, but... No. I just also thought it was kind of funny that they dimmed the lights for the night shift. And it's like,
yeah, I know.
There's that.
There's
that. And now, the Data is a unique scenario because he's the only one who can truly do a 24-hour shift without even fucking blinking about it.
Yeah.
But my other question is, why, if there is a day shift and a night shift, why is the A squad always on the day shift? Like
everything seems to happen during the day shift.
Yeah, like you think they'd split it up? Like, hey, Riker, you're my number 1 guy. Wouldn't you make sense to be the guy that's commanding when I'm not on the bridge? Why would they need both of us on the bridge unless it's a crisis scenario?
True.
But it's just one of those things during this episode that just caught me in. Just like, why is this thing?
Yeah, it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense when you think about it.
Right.
But
anyway, back to why you love the episode. I just had to get that out.
No, it's cool. And
I also really like. Sorry, I just want to say my favorite part of the episode is Data dealing with the emotions between Chief O'Brien and Keiko, and how he realizes that human emotions make no sense because he goes to comfort Keiko after they call off their wedding, and it has the complete opposite effect, and he's totally confused because human emotions don't compute.
No.
Yeah.
And he's like, I tried to comfort her and she was sad and she hates me for it. What the hell is going on? Like, I love that a robot trying to understand complex human emotions that don't even make sense to the people having them. Mm-hmm. You know? That's a really nice element to the episode.
Yeah. No. That's why I like it too. It's like you see that even though he is humanoid, he's very, very not quite human.
And Rosalind Chao is so goddamn cute. She's a Star Trek beauty that doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion.
I would like Keiko.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number 4.
Number 4.
is Mike Stoklaus's favorite episode, and that's Parallels.
I like that episode.
So do I.
I love the episode too, and I don't get why he hates it. His reasoning is bullshit. I remember being in the second grade, and I had a teacher who was also a big Star Trek fan, and like I said to him, so is that real? And he said, it's just a theory. And then like he said, but in theory, it could be true. He said there could be all these parallel universes where different stuff happens. And I thought that was the coolest idea. I love how it didn't get too technical. You saw all these different realities where Captain Picard was killed by the Borg. We saw these different things. I mean, you saw a Cardassian at the helm and wasn't tactical. Yeah. I thought...
Well, we accept in Trek lore that the mirror universe exists.
Right.
Exactly.
So why would this be any different than the mirror universe?
Exactly.
I'll play devil's advocate on behalf of Mike Stoklasa. He says his reasoning is that because there are a million parallel universes with a million enterprises that it devalues the one that we're following. That's what he says. And I kind of understand where he's coming from. But at the same time, like you said, if you buy the mirror universe, if you buy the fact that... And he's also talked about that one episode of Voyager where Voyager splits into two and the Harry Kim from one dies and replaces the one from the other one. And he's fine with that episode.
I would say it devalues it if at the end of the episode they're like, oh, we got to find a way to reach out to these other parallel universes and figure out what's going on and open a dialogue and how can we explore this and exploit it. If they would have done that, then I would have said that devalues it. But if they kind of went on about their day because really it's another scenario where something happened to only one person. There's no real evidence that it actually happened. So did it really happen?
There's one really depressing moment at the end that I think is one of the most depressing moments in all of TNG is when they're trying to reunite all the universes, and the one Riker from the universe that has been destroyed by the Borg comes on. He's like, no, I don't want to go back to my universe. The Federation barely exists. Our ship is almost dead.
Yeah.
And then he blows up, basically. Like, he tries to stop them. It's like, oh, geez, there's a really dystopian universe where, like, everyone's dead and the Borg have completely taken over. That's really terrifying.
I'm honestly surprised there wasn't a few more of those ships like that with the Borg or the Klingon one or the Romulans one or a couple Romulan ships. Like maybe, and this is the thing too, because none of the ships really had that much difference to them.
Not really.
All very. You would have thought there would have been like different ones with like different nacelles, slightly beat up, or just little things on them. But maybe that was a budgetary issue, or
maybe one was like assimilated by the Borg.
Yeah,
maybe one had like Borg parts on it.
Yeah,
that would
be cool. But that was a really sad moment. It really sticks out in my mind. But I really like that episode.
Yeah, because I think they were more or less using that as a character thing for Worf rather than driving a major plot point. Maybe if they had done this in like season 3 or 4. It would have been like one of those, this is going to pop up again and they're going to go deeper into it because it was a season 7 episode. It's like, well, let's just keep it as a Worf character builder.
Yeah, and it worked. It worked well. It's like I said, it's one of my favorites. Number 3.
Well, hold on, but while we're still on this, what was your opinion on the Worf and Troy romance scenario?
I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
I do
think... It didn't go anywhere.
It does seem it's like... I think they were having a bit of fun, but like I think eventually they would have realized, that it wasn't going to work. In fact, there was a deleted scene in Star Trek Generations when the saucer separation takes place and they're about to crash on the planet. Worf goes up to the helm where Deanna's piloting, and he says, "Is this a bad time to break up with you?"
Oh God,
that
would
have
have
been
been
bad.
bad. Ooh.
Yeah, because it's almost like they never mention it again. Like, I mean, outside of outside of season 7 of Next Generation.
Yeah.
Do they even mention it again?
No.
I think they maybe just glanced at it when Riker and her got married. I can't remember if they even mentioned it then, but he never talked about it on DS9, or I don't remember it coming up in the other movies. It was just one of those under the rug things.
Yeah.
I like it because it's realistic. Like if you work with, you work with somebody for 7 years, you might have a casual fling with somebody.
But Klingons don't do that, though. I mean, look at how apprehensive he was to even make a move on her because of the whole Riker scenario. So if it was anybody else, I'd say, yeah, you just sweep it under the rug, forget about it. But this is Worf. This is for a Klingon.
Yeah.
Like, wasn't it the first time he slept with Jadzia? It was like, okay, we got to get married now, like type thing, right? Like we're bonded basically.
But when he banged Alexander's mother, he wanted to marry her right 5 minutes afterwards.
So that's
Worf's not prone to casual relationships.
right. And
yeah, that's a good point.
the only thing that kind of threw me off with that relationship. Is it just seemed very out of character for Worf, and how they handled it after the show seemed way off to me.
Maybe, yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought of it from Worf's perspective. I just looked at it like, well, Troy's had plenty of relationships, so it's fine. I've never saw a lot of chemistry between them two, but then I don't think there was a whole lot of chemistry between her and Riker either.
No.
So
Inzadi.
Yeah. Okay, Troy's turn.
Number 3 is the final episode, All Good Things.
That's a good one.
I remember this being such a big deal when I was, I can't remember if I had already turned 8 years old, but I just remember you were seeing it all over, like Star Trek The Next Generation is ending, like there were newspaper articles, magazines.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I remember.
It was like, and to a huge 7-year-old nerd like me, this was the coolest thing. It's like, everybody is talking about this. This is awesome. And thankfully, I didn't realize it at the time, but season 7 is it's very uneven. You can tell that they're running out of ideas, and when I'm 7, I don't realize it. I think every episode is cool, but looking back at it, it's like it is so amazing that they ended the show and the season and the series on such a high note with such a great idea, and it all goes back to where it started with the Q. And I thought that was pretty interesting. Like, humanity is once again on trial, and the main criticism of it is some people have said that this episode seems to have an emphasis on Picard, and that's true. But at the same time, it's not like we don't see any of the other characters in the other timelines doing nothing. I mean, granted, the ones in the past are thrown out of the loop so as not to change history, but... the main
cast is there. Like, they're pretty present.
They even brought back Crosby.
Yeah.
Like, I was actually a bit surprised that when we see the future Enterprise, which that was the coolest thing to me.
Yeah.
With that third nacelle and that phaser that just blasts the hell out of the Klingon ship. I kept expecting... Okay, we're going to see that Riker is an admiral, so he's got that ship, but Wesley's the real captain. I thought that's what it was going to be, but no, it wasn't the case. And you know what? It's kind of like, I'm surprisingly okay with this now. But
I think the best compliment I can give this episode, and I really feel this way, if they could have turned this 2-parter into a movie, and it would have been 10 times better than any of the TNG movies. This would have made a great movie.
I think it's definitely one of the finest series finales ever done.
Of the tracks? Yeah, I think so.
Of any TV show. It's up there.
Not just
to me, anyway.
For me, it's not just for Trek, but this is like in general. It's like
this is tied everything up nice and neat.
They did what every finale should do. They should make you say, wow, this is a great way to end the series, but they should also say, wow, based on how they did this episode, I wish they were making more.
Mm-hmm.
And not just the final episode, but the final scene, I think, is brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
I love, one of my favorite lines in all the series is when Picard sits down and he's dealing out the cards, and then he stops and goes, I should have done this a long time ago. And then Troy says, you are always welcome. I love that line.
I also like it, too, that it's not cliche, like when a lot of series end, it's just like, just randomly, everybody's going their separate way now. Oh, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to this shit. No, it's just another day.
Behind. That's what we leave behind.
Right.
Everybody going off to do their own things, which is a good episode as well, but it is that.
But it goes back to your point where you say, like, season 7 was uneven. Yeah, season 7 to me felt like the guy at work who gave his 2 weeks notice. It's like, yeah, he's going to have some good days where he's going to put in a solid day's work and still do things like he's every other day, and he's come up with something really cool. But then he's going to have the days where he's just walking around doing nothing. And then he's going to have those days where he just calls in sick. And that's season 7 to me. Because you knew the show was ending, and you felt like the show was ending.
In my mind, and you'll see this from my bottom 5 list, season 5 has some really high highs, but its lows are really low. Mm-hmm. Its lows are as low as season 1 lows, but its highs are way higher than season 1 highs.
Yeah.
There's some really good episodes of season 7. There are some really bad ones.
And getting back to the point that Schweitzer was making earlier about how huge of a deal this show ending was. I was what was that, 94?
94.
So I was 18.
I was 7.
Right. So I was paying attention to a lot of stuff because I was a big fan. This shit was everywhere.
Yeah.
Like all the talk shows, all the news shows, Entertainment Tonight, all these things. There was hour-long specials and documentaries, and they were on like late night shows. The thing was fucking huge. Covers of TV Guide everywhere. Like I think that's lost in today's Trek. It's just how big of a phenomenon Trek was at the time with the conventions and all that shit back then. It was a fucking juggernaut.
I wish I was into Star Trek back then.
Holy shit.
I missed out on all that hype.
I wish I could have went to a convention just to see what it was like. Yeah. They had that fucking Hilton. The fucking Star Trek experience at the Hilton for Vegas.
That's wow. The Star Trek experience? That's around?
I don't think so.
That's been gone for about 10 years.
I would have loved to go to that.
Me too.
That's just how huge Star Trek was in the mid-90s. It was a fucking juggernaut.
Weren't all 3 series running concurrently at the time?
No.
For a brief period?
Voyager didn't start till 95.
I thought there was a brief overlap between all 3, but just Voyager and DS9.
There was a couple overlaps where 2 were running at the same time, never 3.
But still, what an embarrassment of riches to have TNG into DS9 right into Voyager.
Yeah,
man. Now we've got Discovery and Picard, and we all want to kill ourselves.
Did anybody even bother with Lower Decks?
No.
I heard it
premiered,
and I heard the odd one-off episode review, and then never heard another thing about it ever again.
I forgot about it.
I think most people did.
And don't forget, there's also the Nickelodeon series starring Captain Janeway that's going to be animated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they at least getting Kate Mulgrew to do the voice?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, that's good, I guess.
Something, maybe.
Okay. Either way, let's move on to my number 2. And I wouldn't be surprised if this was on your list, Bubs. Yesterday's Enterprise.
Yeah, it's on there.
Oh, I remember... I didn't see this episode when it aired, but just because of how big a deal TNG...
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Just because of how big a deal TNG was at the time, in the lead up to the airing of All Good Things, they did this countdown of the fans voted for their top favorite episodes.
I remember that, yeah.
So number 5 was Relics, number 4 was The Inner Light, and number 3 was Yesterday's Enterprise. They did best of both worlds as number 2 and number 1.
Right.
But I remember hearing Yesterday's Enterprise, and my dad got kind of excited, and I thought, that title sounds pretty cool. Yesterday's Enterprise, and we see the fate of the previous Enterprise, the Enterprise C, from 20 years prior, or 27 or something like that, destroyed by the Romulans defending a Klingon outpost, but during the battle there was some sort of temporal anomaly. It gets thrown into the future where the Enterprise just vanished. They didn't answer the distress call. And so now the Federation is at war with the Klingons because they never answered the distress signal. Great action, great writing. I mean, I think this is some of TNG's best. And also, I like how there's no real easy answer to what they should do. Do they send 150 people back to die in a battle that they can't win? Or do they stay to fight a hopeless battle here in a war that they can't win?
Now, see, if they had a Vulcan on the ship, that question would have been answered in one line.
Yeah.
The needs of the many, the needs of the few, or the one. I am so glad in this episode, because maybe the temptation was there and somebody put the kibosh on it, that they didn't try to bring the original Enterprise into the future and do that nonsense.
Kirk's Enterprise?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so glad they did it the way they did, because what a fucking brilliant episode.
Mm-hmm.
And the cool thing about that is it's another one of those things where, and I forgot to mention this when you brought up All Good Things, it's another, like, because that was another episode where like, nobody else knows about it but Picard. He's crazy again. But this is one of those things where Guinan kind of had the feeling that something had happened, but there was no real repercussions of it until Sela showed up.
Yes.
Right.
And like, oh, this did happen.
Yeah,
okay.
and that's cool when like she talks about that in Redemption. She's like, I heard that Tasha Yar's still alive, and Picard says, no, it's just some sort of Romulan trick. We're not going to fall for it. But then she's like, no, that is Tasha Yar's daughter, and she's here because of you. You're responsible for this. And oh no, it's just great. I love that scene where Picard's like telling Guinan, I'm not going to send them back. I need more information. And she's like, well, there is none. And it's just such a great discussion.
Not good enough, damn it, not good enough.
Yes. But this is also very important. It gave Tasha Yar a proper ending.
Oh, yes.
Her death got to mean something.
Yeah.
She got to fall in love with Shooter McGavin just before she died.
Yeah. She wasn't killed by a sentient piece of poo. It's like, no, like...
I said pieces of shit like you for breakfast.
Yeah.
You eat little pieces of shit for breakfast?
Enterprise will blow up today, not yesterday. Hear what I say.
Want to go roll in the hay or just May?
Enterprise A.
I remember a line that Worf said to Tasha in season 1. He says, Klingons appreciate strong women. So you get the idea that Tasha had won the respect of Worf, and as SF Debris put it in his review of this episode, here Tasha earns the respect of all Klingons. Because they don't go to war because of what the Enterprise C did in that battle that she was eventually a part of. Now, unfortunately, that ending is a bit ruined, however, by Redemption, because you find out, oh no, Tasha Yar survived, and she was made the concubine of a Romulan general.
Yeah.
It's like,
other than that episode, they don't really do anything with Sela after that.
I know.
So it's kind of like you ruined Tasha's ending for a one-off episode.
Well, no, she shows back up in Unification.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But I thought that she would have shown up in Picard based on how important the Romulans are in that series.
You know that Alex Kurtzman has not seen Next Generation.
I know.
He's never watched the show.
He's never watched the show. He doesn't know who Sela is. Anyway.
Yeah, but and also that final battle between Picard's speech also just before that battle. Let's make sure history never forgets the name Enterprise. It's like that always gives me chills hearing that.
Oh, fucking fantastic!
That was your number 2?
That was my number 2. My number 1, and these episodes, the previous 4 episodes, it was hard to pick in any true order, but
it's really hard to pick only 5.
Yeah.
It really is.
This number 1 is definitely for sure my favorite, and that's from season 3, The Defector.
That's on my list too. I love that one.
Oh my god! I remember I recommended this episode to you a couple years ago, and then I remember the next day you were so ecstatic about how well done it was. You said that it reminded you of a John le Carre novel, which I can't think of any higher praise. It does play like a le Carre novel. People are playing against each other. It's got these great themes of loyalty and patriotism, and it's really interesting. And plus, I love the callbacks to, I'm not sure, I can't remember the exact play, but I think it's Richard III. Or no, it's King Henry, no. Because it starts with that play in the holodeck that Data's doing, and it keeps coming up now and then, because Picard says at one point in his ready room to himself, if these men do not die well in battle, it will be a black matter for the king who led them to it, which is from the works of Shakespeare again. And during the battle with Tomlach says, consider the men and women you will lead into a lost cause. And then it calls back to that again. Picard says, if the cause is just and honorable, They are prepared to give their lives. And the thing is, that scene with the Shakespeare, that was not in the original script. It was supposed to be Data doing Sherlock Holmes, but there were some rights issues, and they couldn't do it. So Patrick Stewart suggested, hey, why don't we use Henry VI, I think it is, and we can incorporate it into the story, and it works so much better. It's brilliant. Plus, the actor who plays Commander or Admiral Girac, he's been in a few episodes of DS9. He plays Dr. Mora,
DS9.
And he also played Jetrel in Star Trek Voyager. He's just so brilliant in this episode. It's just great. And there is the constant mystery of who is telling the truth and who's not. Are the Romulans really planning an invasion, or is this guy just a ploy to get them into the neutral zone? It's brilliant. I love it.
Oh, Cat Stevens over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that episode. Is this the first introduction of Commander Tomalak?
No, he appeared previously in in the third season episode. Oh God, I can't remember it, but
the Enemy.
Sorry?
The Enemy.
The Enemy, yes.
It's on my list.
Ah! Well, the Defector's my favorite.
One of the great TNG antagonists, Tomalak.
Yeah, it's funny because I was going to mention that, like, he showed up in like almost back-to-back episodes with the Enemy and the Defector, and then one more time in Future Imperfect, which is a great episode, which I think we all left off our list, but I fucking love that episode. Mm-hmm. And then he kind of just never happened again, especially when all the big shit went down, like Reunification and the other two-part episode from Season 4, Season 5 Romulans. We already mentioned it. Reunion and
Redemption.
Redemption.
That's the Worf one.
Right. Either way. I'm just surprised that because he was such a good villain, that he just didn't show up in any of those big moments with Romulans. I would have liked to have seen more of him and more of him facing off against Picard in battle or something.
Believe it or not, Tomalak does show up again in All Good Things. He's that Romulan who tells Picard, how long shall we stare at each other across the neutral zone? But the thing is, the actor who played Tomalak passed away. So I don't know why, but they needlessly replaced him with another actor. I just thought just put a different character.
It's noticeable too because he doesn't look. I didn't know that was. I wouldn't have known that was Tomalak unless they would have said Picard would have said so.
Yeah,
because it does not look
no
like
idea.
him.
Yeah, interesting.
So that was your number one?
Yeah, The Defector is my number one. Favorite episode.
It's a fantastic episode, but I wouldn't have guessed that would be your number one.
Why would you Well,
Bubs' turn.
Here's the thing.
We've talked about all yours already?
Well, no, we talked about most, but I always, of course, put more than 5 on the list just because I like to have honorable mentions. So since we already pretty much discussed a good chunk that are on my list, I'll bring up some of my honorable mentions and we'll kind of string them in there. So one of them I definitely wanted to mention is on my list is the Season 5 episode Cause and Effect.
Yes.
Where basically they're caught in a time loop, basically. And the fucking episode just opens up with such a punch in the gut where you just see all of a sudden the Enterprise is spinning out of control. Red alert, give the order to abandon ship, all hands abandon ship, and then the Enterprise blows up. Boom, opening credits, like, holy shit.
The great thing about that episode is they managed to do almost all the scenes over and over again, but change it just enough that you don't get bored of it, which is amazing because they do like the same scene at the poker game like 6 times.
Yep.
But it doesn't seem repetitive.
It's because they filmed it for each time from different angles.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. So the way they filmed it, and then every time it happens again, little things start trickling in. They start getting a sense of deja vu, and more things are creeping in until they eventually figure out what's happening, and they're caught in a causality loop.
Yeah.
And holy shit, I love that episode. And then they ended up, turns out they end up crashing into Captain Fraser.
Yeah, Fraser shows up again.
Like, damn it, Fraser.
Oh, for God's sakes, Niles.
No, and then the way they figured it out, and over and over again, they keep... how did they end up figuring out...
Data sent a signal back to his past self.
Right, and all they could send back was like one character.
Yeah, they sent back to number 3, and he noticed the pips on Riker's collar.
Yeah. What a random thing, of all the things, because you would have thought it would have been the third suggestion or something like that, but no, it's the 3 pips. Like,
yeah,
that's fucking crazy.
They could only send back a byte of data or something like that. Like, yeah, but it was really random that Fraser shows up at the end of the episode. But I guess Kelsey Grammer wanted to be on.
But it's weird that they could only send back the byte of data back, but there was overlapped voices and signals that they were picking up. You would have wondered if they could have found a way to send back a signal because it was looping again and again and again, almost like listening to a tape that's been recorded over 100 times. Like that signal keeps leaking in. But no, I thought that was a brilliant solution to get out of it. So again, one of my favorite episodes. Let's see. I also have Q Who. Which is our introduction to the board.
Oh, that one, yes.
Yeah, where Q has been.
Couldn't remember which
Q
episode
had
that was.
been kicked out of the Continuum at the time, Eddie, but he was looking to basically become a member of the crew, saying, "Hey, I could help you guys out. I could show you things that you've never seen out here before. Let me be your guide." And of course they distrust him. I do like that he ran into Guinan, and there was a lot of backstory there, and the thing that bothered me about that though is they never addressed it again. Really, I mean, they had their bit of conflict in the next Q episode, but Q was almost afraid of her. Does she have some sort of power or something? Can she stop him? Is she omnipotent? Is she another Q?
That was my theory. I thought, I mentioned to Schweitzer when I rewatched this episode, I thought there might have been plans to reveal that she had been a former Q. Because when they meet each other in 10 Forward, Q goes is about to snap, and Guinan does this with her fingers. She has her own motion to use Q powers with. It looked like she was about to do something to him. I thought, was she a former Q or something like that who gave up her powers? But I like that they never explain who or what Guinan is.
Yeah.
Keeps her very mysterious.
But I would have liked to at least know what their backstory was with each other.
Again, I like that that's a mystery. They've got a past that we don't know. It's kind of cool. But yeah.
Something I always like, Picard's being all smug. It's oh no, we're ready, we're fine, we're good. It's oh yeah, let's just see how ready you are. And boom, snaps his fingers and sends him out to the board. And then he's oh yeah, you're gonna see some shit while you're out here. Yeah. Get ready.
What I also like, what I like in this episode is the scene where the Borg take a piece out of the ship. Yeah. There's no explosions. There's no if this had been happening during the time of Voyager, the ship would be shaking. There, every console would be exploding because a piece of it's being ripped out. But it's just kind of Riker's oh, geez, he's carving us up like a roast.
No, they're very methodical in the way they're handling the new contact with the species, rather than just going at them guns blazing and showing them exactly what they can do.
It's
they're
kind of creepy.
It
shows how precise and surgical they are. Explosions are fine, but they're just gonna cut a part out of the ship without any resistance.
They're the black piece on the chessboard. They're letting Enterprise make all the moves, fire their weapons, do whatever they got to do, and then slowly they're just carving pieces out of them. They're scanning them. They're sending quote-unquote spies or drones over to analyze the ship and hack into the computer, but they're not attacking. They're not making any moves. They're just very methodically learning.
They don't even see Enterprise as a threat.
No.
They're we can do whatever we want with you. We're not scared.
And I'm trying to remember, did they actually even mention assimilation at that time?
No.
I don't remember.
I think they just said you become you will be. I don't even think they don't say assimilated.
No, it's lower your shields or you will be destroyed. They're.
Yeah. They said you use the word punish.
Yeah. And it gets to the point where, finally Picard has to break down and say, you know what? We aren't ready for this. Q, we need your help. And
there's a really good line from Picard there where he says, you wanted to scare us, Q. Well, we're scared. It was the first time Picard ever admits to being afraid, and he looks when the way he says that, he sounds scared. It really sells them as a threat.
I need you. And I love how Q puts over, you're basing your encounters in the universe on, the Klingons, the Romulans. Yeah. They're nothing. There are things out here that will terrify your soul, you're not ready for it. So here, I'm kind of giving you a heads up as to what's happening. So it's another one of those instances where you look at Q, especially like in All Good Things, like, is Q fucking with them, or is Q actually like a big brother trying to watch out for them? Like, maybe the way he's doing it's not the easiest and best of manner way, but he's actually trying to watch out for humanity and help them out. Because even Picard says he gave us a kick in the complacency.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were very, they're very smug about the way they do things. They're like, oh, we can handle anything out here. We're the Federation. They're like, oh, we've evolved past everything. It's like, yeah, you're one fucking Borg attack away from being wiped out, bud.
Another great example of that is Tapestry,
Mm-hmm.
where Q is, messing with Picard and he's an antagonist, but he's also kind of helping him as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I love that. I love that relationship between Picard and Q.
Yet another episode where something happens and nobody can prove it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we don't know if it actually happened. It could have been all, like, did Picard actually die? Was it a complete, just Q fucking with him the entire time?
Was it a dream?
I like how Q introduces himself as God in that episode. It's like, maybe he is God. He could be. He's omnipotent.
I just like where welcome to the afterlife, Picard. You're dead.
He's dead, yeah. He really relishes that line.
This episode also contains, I think, my favorite speech from Q, and that's just before he vanishes for the last time. He tells, like, Picard says, I think this lesson could have been taught, Q, without the loss of 17 members of my crew. And Q just tells him, if you can't take a little bloody nose, maybe you ought to go back home and crawl under your bed. It's not safe out here. It's wondrous, with treasures to satiate desires both subtle and gross. But it's not for the timid. And then he vanishes. I love that line.
Yep. Fucking great.
He was one of the best Star Trek characters.
This is an episode which I always liked, but I rewatched it again, and it really got me. Really, like, emotionally on every level. This one really got to me, and that's The Offspring.
Oh, Data's daughter?
When Data has the daughter.
Oh, my God, that ending is so sad.
Oh, my God. I forget the one line that really got me, but, I can't feel what you're feeling. It's like, I'll feel it for the both of you. And then she slowly starts breaking down, and, the last few lines she has is, oh, my God, that fucking got me, man.
I will feel it for both of us. Thank you for my life.
That's it. Thank you for my life. The way she said it, oh, fuck, I almost broke down when she said it like that. Like, oh, fuck. Yeah.
Certainly one of the saddest episodes. No question.
And again, it's another episode that Picard ruined, because they don't even mention the fact that he created another android and had the daughter and everything. But
sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, just the whole, and I like, it's another case where, just like with Maddox, where he has to convince an admiral that, he's a sentient life, he should have the right to create a sentient life, he should have the right to raise her the way he wants, because the admiral wants to come in, take her back to the lab and analyze her and raise her in the Federation way, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Data wants to just nurture his child. And it's another one of those great Picard head in his palms moments.
Oh, yes.
I'm trying to find the quote. I can't find it exactly, but there's a line that also really gets to me where it's, you swear Data can feel emotion. Yeah. You really swear he can. I think Troy says it. She's talking about Data trying to save Lal, where he says his hands were moving faster, so fast I couldn't see them, but each system was collapsing faster than he could repair it. And just that image of him, like, just working at his absolute maximum capacity to try to save her, you could swear he has emotion.
Yeah, and I love her acting when she's in Victoria's quarters.
My speakers are.
There we go.
Okay.
Anyway, when she goes,
the wire was loose.
When she goes into Troy's quarters and she's starting to break down and she's getting really scared and terrified, and that got to me too, man.
Somebody did a recut of that scene where, like, she starts to explain Lal starts to explain her problem to Troy, and Troy just responds, "If you can't handle it here, you might want to consider a transport ship."
It's one of those episodes where I love it. It's like almost a masterpiece, but it's not one I watch very often because it's very sad. It's like It's like the DS9 episode Hard Time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great episode,
Oh, yeah.
but it just hits you so hard with that emotional gut punch. I don't like to watch it too often, but it's a fantastic episode. And yeah, Picard ruined it, of course.
Yes, as it always does. So yeah, we talked a little bit about the enemy, where Geordi and the Romulan are basically trapped on a desolate planet, and they both have to kind of work together and learn how to trust each other. And I just love that bond of how they just kind of, at the beginning there's so much mistrust, and they're about ready to kill and murder each other. But then I think he gets the Romulan gets injured or something.
He can't walk, and Geordi can't see.
Yeah, Geordi can't see because his visor's all messed up, so they have to figure out, basically team up and work together. Meanwhile, the Enterprise and a Romulan ship are on the brink of war, and they're just about to annihilate each other when, suddenly they are end up to work together and communicate and get back to the ships. So I just thought it was a really good, another one of those face of the enemy type scenarios where, even though we're at war, we have to kind of, we're just beings.
Yeah.
And we're just people, and we just, for survival, we have to learn to work together with each other.
They find a common humanity, even though humanity is not really the right word. But
and even though these cultures are very different, I think at one point Geordi explains to the Romulan, "I was born blind," and the Romulan says, "And your parents let you live?"
Yeah. Oh fuck. I have the Measure of a Man on there, obviously. Darmok was on there. Yesterday's Enterprise. The Inner Light is another one of my favorites for obvious reasons.
Another pretty sad episode.
Very sad, but kind of inspiring episode too, where Picard gets to carry on this whole civilization. What a way! The civilization was dying, but they found a way to preserve their memories in this probe.
Yeah.
To just beam over to Picard. Now
what a burden to carry.
Yeah, and again, I think that was Picard that can't prove that.
Yeah, exactly. It's all in his mind.
But it's fucking brilliant. He lives a whole life on this planet, basically, and then basically forgetting who he is and forgetting his own previous identity, like he's crazy, and just experiences his whole life in another civilization. He has a family, he has a wife, he has grandkids. Yeah. All the while, the planet is slowly dying and struggling to preserve it. And then, right at the end, when he's getting close to the point where he's going to die, and he's depressed that he can't save the world, he's like, well, no, we've actually saved the world through you. Like, all of our memories come together, and you're living our lives. You're living vicariously through us, and it's amazing scene. Beautiful. And it's another sad scene too, because now all of a sudden his wife's alive again, and his kids are younger, and his friend is alive again too, and it's just, what a moment.
Yeah, it's a beautiful episode.
The flute playing was beautiful.
Oh, God, yes.
And it comes back later in the episode where Picard gets a girlfriend. It's a main plot point. Mm-hmm. It's never just forgotten about.
Yeah.
I like that when an emotional episode has a callback that it resonates. It's not like, we just had this really emotional thing and we're just going to forget about it forever. Because they do that a lot in Star Trek, where something big happens and they just never mention it again. I really like when those episodes carry forward.
Or there's little Easter eggs, like the tapestry he got in Who Watches the Watchers is always in his quarters.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Or in Generations, where he finds the Kurlaneska on the bridge.
Yes.
Oh, maybe not that one.
Yeah.
We don't count them. But what were you going to say, Schweitzer?
I was going to say that scene at the end of the episode where, Riker just gives him the flute, like we found this inside, gives him the flute, then he just leaves, and Picard starts playing it. Oh, I didn't get it too much when I was 7, but when I watched this again when I was in my early 20s, I almost started crying. It is just brilliant.
Mm. And, of course, my number one, because I'm going to be the only one who's actually going to be cliche on the show, because it's what I do. Obviously, for me, it's the best of both worlds.
Okay.
Now, it's not just because it's the board. It's not just because everybody heralds it as the best episode. Let me tell you about when I was watching Star Trek. So that episode was, 91, 92, I think the season finale was.
1990.
Okay, so I'd have been about 14, 15 years old. I didn't watch it when it was originally come out. I started watching Star Trek Next Generation again when it was in syndication. So that was probably, I think they do that after about 100 episodes or so.
I think so.
So I was aware of Star Trek when I was a kid, Wasn't a huge fan. And I'd seen some of the movies, and I liked them. And then the Next Generation came on. I'm like, okay, I'll give this a watch. I think I was probably about 9 or 10 when it come on. And I watched some of the first season episodes, and it was okay, but they weren't great, and it just wasn't grabbing me. So I kind of just went away from it for a few years. And then they started rerunning it on Channel 50 at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So I'd either stay up and watch it, or I'd tape it and watch it the next day. And, of course, I just started randomly watching episodes. They did run them in order, but I think I might have jumped in around season 3 or something like that. What a great season to jump into, right? In
the show gets really
in that run of the show in syndication. And so I'm going through, and I'm, okay, these are pretty good episodes, and I'm getting hooked on the characters, and I'm liking this a lot. And then they get to the Best of Both Worlds Part 1. Okay, this is good. I'm liking this. And the Borg show up. And I'm like, holy shit, what is going to happen? And then that finale of Part 1, that was when I was like, okay, I'm fucking all in, balls deep. Holy shit, I need to know everything about this fucking show. Everything about the Borg, everything on that show. That just grabbed me and pulled me in so deep that I was just a diehard Trek and Next Generation fan for the next how many decades. It was that show, that episode, that made me just fall in love with Star Trek, and especially the Next Generation. So that, to me, is why that is the number one episode. It's because that began my real love affair with Star Trek.
I can see that. It sort of took it was at the end of season 3, which was when the show started getting really good. But it felt like that was like the turning point. Like that was like the climax of the entire series.
This is what lifted it from the grips of just being a sci-fi show and brought it into the popular culture, where even if you don't know, even if you don't watch the show, you recognize parts of it.
And then I looked back on it, and because I wanted to know everything, and I read about how you had to wait a whole summer back then to know what was going to happen, how this was going to end. Are they going to fucking kill Picard off? And I also read that there was a contract negotiation, and they weren't even sure, at least that was the rumor leaking out at the time, that he was even going to come back to the show.
Really?
So there was a good chance. I mean, obviously I was watching it in syndication, but if you had put yourself there at that moment, you weren't sure if Patrick Stewart was coming back to the show, so you weren't sure if they were legitimately going to kill that character off. Because in a lot of shows, let's face it, you watch it, you know the main characters. You like fucking A-Team, you know they're not killing off fucking Mr. T or whatever other show that's on. They're not killing off a main character. They do that now because TV is so much different than it was 23 years ago, but back then you were pretty sure it wasn't going to happen. But then when that shit started coming out, you're like, holy fuck, are they really taking this show in another direction? It was fucking amazing.
And the special effects were unbelievable. It looked great. I read that in season 4, I don't know if it was season 3 or season 4, but some episodes had to be scaled back because they overspent on the budget for Best of Both Worlds.
And I think what's lost and really forgotten and underestimated in this is the score.
Yeah.
They actually put out, and I have it, a CD of that show scores and all the tracks.
Really?
From that entire episode. I think they did it with like 3 different, I can't remember what the other 2 were, but I remember seeing the CDs. But when I saw like the Best of Both Worlds soundtrack, I had to buy it. You just listen to the music, and right away your head pops to that scene. It's fucking amazing. I think it might actually be on Spotify. So if you get the chance and you just sit down in a dark room or a quiet room with no visual, no TV, put that soundtrack on, and your brain is going to jump right to each scene. I swear. Don't even look at the track names. Just your brain is going to jump right there. Fantastic.
And then it also has the great epilogue, which is family, which is the perfect capper to that 2-parter.
Yep.
When I watched it, I almost viewed it as like a 3-part episode.
I would watch, almost 4, because I would watch that, I would watch Family, and then I would watch iBoard. To see how Picard's dealing with the Borg.
That's sort of the episode where he kind of finally comes to terms with his relationship with the Borg.
Yes. At first, he's willing to like release the virus and annihilate them.
Yeah.
And then Geordi humanizes it, and Guinan of all people, convinces Picard to save
should
the
hate the
species.
Borg more than her.
Right. So, and that's a very underrated, underlooked episode too. Is Iborg. I don't care much about the other one, but the one with Data, Lore, and all them. The
Descent.
Yeah.
It's okay, but
it's good, but it's not a great episode.
You can tell they're running out of ideas.
Yeah.
So really, what I would watch in an arc is I would watch Q-Who, Best of Both Worlds, Family, and Iborg.
Yeah, that's the Borg saga.
Yeah.
And then maybe not First Contact. It's a good movie, but it kind of does ruin that the Borg arc, because suddenly Picard is now violently angry at the Borg again.
It waters them down to me as well.
I like the movie, but it kind of ruins that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So that's my
all right. Well, we got a pretty diverse picks. I like that.
Yeah.
Now let's try to rattle through the low points of the series. I'll try not to spend too much time on this, but I was surprised when I was going through my least favorite episodes. I thought it was mostly going to be season 1 stuff, but actually most of my bottom 5 list is season 7. I maybe it's because my expectations were so high at that point that the bad episodes seem worse, whereas I went into season 1 anticipating some crap. But we'll all just get into it. My number 5 episode is from season 7. It's an episode where it's not unwatchable, it's not terrible, but it's very pointless and dull, and that is Masks.
Okay, keep going.
What, do you like Masks?
No, that's my number 5.
Oh, wow, interesting. Masks, I kind of like the concept of them, they're encountering this asteroid, this data center, which then sort of terraforms the Enterprise into a copy of its culture in order to carry it on. That's kind of a neat idea, but it ends up kind of being boring. I feel like this is an episode that they wrote just to give Brent Spiner something to do, because he has to portray 4 different split personalities, and he does a fairly good job. It's always nice to see Brent Spiner get a chance to act a little more. But the whole process of finding out what's going on, finding out who these people are, these ancient gods or whatever, and how to stop them, it ends up just being really dull, and I never feel like there's any real tension or any real stakes. And then the whole ending with Picard and Data, and they're wearing the masks, and they're talking as these ancient characters. I was just like, I think I pulled out my phone at that point. It just totally bored me. The episode's very pointless.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird.
There's no memorable dialogue. There's nothing really exciting about it. It just feels like
I think it's a good concept that was just lost in the execution. And again, maybe if it was one of those episodes that was like a season 3 or 4 episode, might have put a better time in writing or show running into it. It could have been better.
There's a lot of season 1 episodes that I would generalize like that, where it's a good concept, just a bad execution. This feels like one of those episodes.
Yeah.
It could have been a lot better, maybe. My number 4 is also a season 7 episode, one that on this recent rewatch I don't remember ever seeing, or if I did, I have no memory of it, which is Genesis. The episode where there's like some sort of Barclay has this sort of medical problem, and Beverly Crusher's treatment of it causes an outbreak of a virus on the ship that causes everybody to evolve backwards, which, as a scientific concept, I don't think is possible. They kind of explain it, whereas these dormant genes that were left over from the previous, who they were in the past, sort of reemerged and turned them into monsters, basically.
I remember Troy looked like she was melting in it.
Well, Troy turns into like a frog, which is like, did Betazoids evolve from frogs? And then Worf turns into like a monster that it looks like the monster from Darmok. Mm-hmm. And then Riker turns into a caveman, which is the scene that I found the most embarrassing.
Yeah.
Where Riker's a caveman, like going ooh, 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 and walking around the ready room.
Isn't Barclay a spider?
Fish.
Yeah, trying to eat Picard's fish. Yeah, Barclay turned into a spider. Why? Humans didn't evolve from spiders.
It's
just almost so dumb.
It's like somebody. I imagine that the writers of Voyager for Threshold watched this and said,
Yeah.
amateurs, we can do better.
It's very thresholdy, that's for sure. And it's not even a sorry.
It's like they're trying to do a haunted house
Yeah.
with Star Trek.
No, you're right. It is very haunted house because they're kind of moving from room to room, and Picard is like running away from Monster Wharf in the Jeffries tube.
Yeah.
And then there's no clever solution or twist. It's kind of just Data's like in sick bay, and eventually he's like, "Oh, I found a way to reverse it," and then they reverse it. So there's not even any like clever twist to it or anything. It's just kind of it's not even an episode where it's a good concept that was done poorly. It was a bad concept to begin with.
And if I recall, doesn't Spot, Data's cat, turn into a lizard?
Spot turns into a lizard. Yeah.
Why?
An iguana. How does that work? Cats did not evolve from iguanas.
How does he turn back? Just magically turns back? Like, I don't
They
know.
used something with Nurse Ogawa's unborn baby.
Yeah, that's another thing. They kill off Nurse Ogawa's baby for no reason.
No,
I
they didn't
thought,
kill her.
no. I thought it was all good things the baby died.
No.
Didn't she lose the baby in that episode?
No. What happened was before the reality got reset towards the end of the episode, Alyssa does lose the baby because of their proximity to the anomaly. It's reversing a lot of. So basically, the baby just vanished.
That's an all good things, though.
I think I'm confusing it because Genesis.
Things.
Because Genesis is like 2 episodes away from All Good Things, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
It's very close to it.
Yeah.
See, that's the one where the guy called in sick, but he gave us 2 weeks' notice. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to go work for Voyager.
It's a pretty embarrassing episode. Yeah. My number 3 is an episode that I don't think I ever saw until this watch. And that's because it's actually, I think, one of the most boring and pointless episodes. And I remember I asked Schweitzer about this episode. I said, "What's your opinion on this?" And Schweitzer didn't remember it. That tells you it's a very forgettable episode,
right?
Because Schweitzer knows everything about everything. That's season 5's The Masterpiece Society.
Oh, they're like clones or something.
They're not. It's very ill-defined. So the episode is basically the Enterprise is guiding this, I don't know if it's an asteroid or some sort of space debris, into a sun to destroy it, and they find a planet that's in the way, and on the planet they find a human colony, and they describe themselves as being genetically predetermined.
Oh, you mean kind of like they did with Continuity and Sing that was probably outlawed.
Yeah, I don't think they ever specifically say that they were genetically engineered, but genetically predetermined in the sense that the entire future of this colony, this is how I understand it, this could be wrong because it's very poorly explained, that the genetic lineages of all the different families on the planet their roles and their breeding are predetermined.
Okay.
So if you are the blacksmith, well, your son will be the blacksmith and your offspring will be the blacksmith, and then you will mate with this family, and then that line will carry on. It's like all their lineage is predetermined. Mm. That's how I understand it. If they're
hundreds of them,
collective breeding.
Right. If they're clones, if they're genetically bred, I don't know. It's not very well explained. And Troy falls in love with one of the people. I guess it's kind of a Troy episode, although the only thing she really does is fall in love with one of the guys, like, for no reason. I don't like when they do that. They do it a few times in TNG, where in order to, I don't know, give some emotional stakes to the plot, Troy just instantly falls in love with somebody.
Or Crusher when she falls in love with the Trill.
Yeah.
Or Loxana falls in love with Major Winchester because he has to die at 65 or something.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that episode.
Yeah.
Or Half a Life, or the one where Troy falls in love with the ambassador when they're negotiating the wormhole.
Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So she falls in love with him, even though he's just a guy. Like, they never establish that he's like super smart or successful or attractive, or they just kind of instantly fall in love for no reason. And then, so the big conflict is some of these people are kind of not rebelling, but they show signs of they're not happy with their lot in life on the planet and they want to leave.
Mhm.
And they ask Picard, like, we don't want to be a part of this society anymore. Can you help us get off the planet? And Picard actually has to like stop and consider it, which in my mind, that's a no-brainer. You've got a human colony on this planet whose lives are being predetermined. That's not slavery, but it's really interfering with their rights.
Oh, they're asking for asylum.
They're asking for help. And Picard, there's a scene where, I don't remember the quote, but Picard tries to invoke the Prime Directive, and I'm like, no. You can't get out of this with the Prime Directive, Picard. This is a human colony. It's not a pre-warp society. You can't just... He's almost using it as a shield. And I'm like, no. You can't invoke the Prime Directive and get out of this.
Well, refresh my memory. Were they citizens of the Federation, or were they like an independent colony?
They're an independent colony, but they were citizens of the Federation.
Okay.
They kind of... From my understanding, their ancestors who went off to form this colony just sort of left, which I guess would revoke their Federation.
No, the Prime Directive doesn't apply because they're not interviewing. If somebody asks for help, and they're a human colony, then they're obligated to help them.
Also, if the Prime Directive was in play, they shouldn't have contacted the colony to begin with, because the Enterprise initiated that contact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the fact that Picard has to debate whether or not to take these people off the planet, really, I don't know if it's bad writing or it seems like a no-brainer to me. Picard should help these people. And I think he does eventually, after a lot of soul searching and trying to figure out what's morally correct, where to me the answer is obvious.
Yeah.
But mainly my problem with the episode is just really dull. It's boring.
I remember it being boring, yeah.
It's not adequately communicated of what this colony is and why we should want those people to stay. Like it's just a very dull and pointless episode.
It's definitely one you just skip because it's just
it's very skippable. It's not unwatchable, but it's not very.
Yeah, am I going to sit down, invest 40 minutes in this episode?
Yes.
I don't care. No.
My next one on my list, my number 2, is one that I consider to be basically unwatchable. And I debated putting this on my number 1, but I had to put it on number 2. That's season 1's The Last Outpost.
Oh,
I almost put that on my list.
The introduction of the Ferengi.
I don't hate that episode.
It's so embarrassing, the way that the Ferengi are jumping around on the planet like goblins with their stupid laser whips. And then like Skeletor appears out of nowhere to tell Riker to... And then Riker just quotes Sun Tzu's Art of War and like, oh, I could see you're much more evolved. I'll be your friend now.
But this is one of those episodes, to me, is just so bad that I watch it because I just enjoy laughing at it. It's not...
It is pretty comical.
I think it's worse to be bad and boring than to be bad and comical. And this one's just bad and comical. Because this is like the second or third episode.
Third episode. I think it's the third or fourth.
So I cut up some slack in that. But you can imagine me as a kid watching this and like, oh, this is what Star Trek is? Then no wonder I tuned out, right? Like, yeah, it was bad. But I watch it now and I just laugh at it.
I wrote down a couple of my 3 things that are some of the stupidest parts of the episode.
Okay.
Remember the end where Data is caught in the Chinese finger trap?
Oh, yeah.
For some reason, even though like Data is like the smartest being in the universe,
Well,
and he's pulled by a finger trap.
You also have to remember, we see him bend a bar of steel in the measure of a man.
Yes,
but the Chinese finger trap, it's like, oh no, I'm helplessly stuck. Help!
As Picard infamously says in Measure of Man, Data possesses mega strength. Yet he can't break a Chinese finger trap. Yeah, it's stupid. Worf refers to the Ferengi as pygmy cretins.
Racist.
Pygmies a tribe of Africans on ancient Earth. Why would Worf be referring to them as pygmies? It's so stupid.
Well, he did live on Earth.
Because he was raised by racist Russians.
It's a small tribe of Africans that were long extinct 400 years before he was born.
Maybe he played soccer with one. I don't know.
Okay, I forgot you loved The Last Outpost. I forgot it's your favorite episode.
I will defend it with the blue whip of death, sir.
Let me trash it. There's also this really stupid and weird exchange between Beverly and Picard that it seems like something out of an episode of Modern Trek, because it's like,
oh boy,
it's like creating sexism where it doesn't exist. It's really bizarre. You remember during that episode when Riker and Worf and whatever on the planet, up on the Enterprise, everyone is like slowly suffocating to death, and Beverly is trying to figure out how to stop it or whatever. So Picard and Crusher have this exchange in the sickbay. Jean-Luc says, "Where's Wesley?" Dr. Crusher says, "He's in our quarters. I was tempted to give him a sedative." "You shouldn't." "I know, but he's my son. I love him. He has the right to meet death awake." "Is that a male perspective?" What? And I think Picard then says, like, "That's ridiculous," or something like that. But, like, what does that even mean? Is that a male perspective?
Right.
Like, no, Picard's saying, like, okay, your son shouldn't die, but he should have the dignity of dying, dying on his feet. It's almost like, no, you shouldn't sedate your son so he can die. I don't know. I can see Beverly's perspective.
I get where you're coming from. It's like that could have been written better.
Yeah, Picard's like, let him die with a little dignity.
Right.
And if Beverly wants to say, no, I'd rather him die, not being aware of it,
or
fine.
without having pain.
Right. But he says, like, she's like, oh, is that a male perspective?
Yeah.
What the fuck are you talking about, bitch? It's a really bad... to me, it feels like an original series episode, but a really bad original series episode. And this is the time of the show in season 1 where there was a lot of holdover on writers from TOS, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
And there was, like, no mention of the Ferengi being, like, wanting profit and greed or anything like that.
No.
I think even in the next episode they were like that, too. Was it The Battle or something?
Yeah. The Picard.
Yeah, where, like,
Picard's
they were
enemy
almost
comes back.
portraying as, like, the Ferengi as being, like, these cunning warriors in battle, how they were able to, like, destroy the Stargazer. I think that's what they said happened to the Stargazer. And, like, they were able to best Picard in battle and all this shit. Like, this is not the Ferengi we know.
Well, the Ferengi definitely changed in later episodes of TNG, and certainly in Deep Space Nine.
In fact, they even mentioned, I think, in DS9 that they pretty much bought all their technology. And they
had to buy warp drive technology.
Yeah, they're not. The weapons are not a big thing for them unless they're just defending themselves or something. So, and then the fucking blue whips. Oh.
I would have liked a very an Easter egg in DS9 where you go into like Quark's quarters and you just see like the laser whip on the wall, like, mounted on the wall in the background. That would have been cool.
Or in DS9, maybe a Quark selling it at an auction or something like that.
No, I got it. The episode of DS9, The Amazing Ferengi, when they're going off on that mission to the abandoned space station, they're bringing weapons, and Quark pulls out the laser weapon. He's like, nah, too retro, and throws it away. That would have been great.
Or remember when the Klingons are about to board, and he says that he'll protect the bar with this laser that he had from his old starship. But then Rom stole the parts from it. You could just be like, well, I got my old Ferengi whip. But then, like, oh, no, it won't turn on because Rom stole the parts that give it the electricity.
Yeah, things
or he hadn't invested in some weapons company where all they ever made were these stupid blue whips that we only sold to idiots.
Yeah.
Something.
I lost a lot of money on that deal.
Yeah.
Lost a lot of latinum. Should have never invested in industrial laser whips.
Yeah, I just wish there was some sort of throwback to it or something.
Yeah, it's maybe I wouldn't blame them for just wanting to forget that episode.
I'm sure that's what they did.
And my number one worst episode of all time, I don't think it should come as a surprise. I wanted to put this lower on my list just to make a statement about how The Last Outpost was worse, but I rewatched it recently and there's no way to get around it. Worst episode of TNG is Sub Rosa, season 7. Beverly bangs a ghost.
Beverly bangs the ghost.
It'll bring a ghost.
What are you going to call? Ash Masters!
I don't even know what to say. It's dumb. It's basically like they wanted to do like a Harlequin romance novel, but in a sci-fi setting. And which I'm sure there's some way you can do it without it being stupid, but this was just stupid. I barely remember
even what happened. Who was this for? That's my question. Who was this
Maybe
for?
Gates McFadden really wanted an episode where she falls in love with a ghost.
And this brings up my point. I mentioned this. I don't know if I mentioned it to Schweitzer. but I've talked to you about this.
Mm-hmm.
On this show, and this is one of the things that I will debate with. I think Beverly Crusher is the most useless, outside of maybe Wesley, the most useless fucking character on that show. And here's my reason why. And I love Pulaski because at least Pulaski had some good, interesting chemistry with some of the other characters like Data and Worf. And I really wish they would have kept her on the show. Can you tell me either one great instance or great episode that featured Beverly Crusher?
Remember Me. I like Remember Me.
It was okay.
It's not a great episode, but I think it's
good.
I
It was all right.
can't remember the exact episode, but it's the episode where there's that Ferengi scientist who dies, and she gets fired because she did an autopsy instead of letting the body be vacuumed. I remember she blasts this guy. She blasts a hole in this guy with a phaser before she vaporizes him. I thought that was pretty cool.
Okay.
The episode where Beverly gets kidnapped by the terrorist cell.
I didn't like that episode.
I like it. It's not great. I'll concede to you that there's no great, amazing Beverly Crusher episode, but I don't hate her episodes. I think they're good.
She's just there.
What about that?
Nothing.
What about that episode where she goes to live in her grandmother's house and a ghost gives her an orgasm? oh wait, that's Sub Rosa. Never mind.
Outside of her being flirty with Picard or being Wesley's mother, she's a good doctor. I'll give her that. What does she add to the show?
I agree.
Compared to any other character.
Potential.
And maybe it's the writer's fault. Maybe they just didn't know how to write for her, give her direction, give her good dialogue, give her any character development. But I really don't care anything about her character or remember all that much about her.
I like her. Maybe it's just I like Gates McFadden.
I do like Gates McFadden.
She's very sweet. She's very pretty. She's likable. I like her rapport with Captain Picard. I like her friendship with Troy. I feel like there's a real connection between those two as friends.
Yes.
But yeah, if you look at other doctors, like Dr. Bashir had a little bit more of a character and personality. Certainly the EMH on Voyager had much more of a personality and an interesting character. She's just kind of the doctor, and I think Pulaski was more interesting. She had more of a distinctive personality. Mm-hmm. She had a little bit of clashing with Data. She was a very McCoy-esque character. She didn't like to use the teleport. She was old school. Mm-hmm. She fought with Captain Picard a lot, which is something Beverly, they kind of spat a little bit, him and Beverly, but really they're kind of lovers in a way, or like reluctant lovers.
Yeah.
I don't hate Beverly Crusher, but I agree with you that there's not a rich, deep character there.
It's not a hate. It's like, oh, here's Beverly. I fucking, like people were with Wesley. It's not a hate. It's just, I think of all the characters on the show, she's the most fucking useless and really doesn't bring anything to the table as far as I'm concerned.
I would argue Troy is a little more useless. There's some good Troy episodes, but I don't think there's a lot of amazing Troy episodes.
Face of the Enemy was really good.
Okay, that one was pretty good.
Yeah.
But I think Remember Me is a pretty good episode. I would put that almost on the level of Faces of the Enemy.
Okay. I'll give you that. I'll give you, I do really like that episode. Yeah. So I will give you that. But it's a rarity for her.
Yeah. If I were to say any of the characters are weak, I think Crusher and Troy are a little bit weak.
Yes.
And Schweitzer said,
it's just...
Well, Schweitzer sent me a clip one time, I think it was of Gates McFadden complaining that the writers on the show, I think she did call them sexist, but that they didn't know how to write or didn't want to write women. And
wasn't that one of the reasons why Denise Crosby left?
I don't know what...
Denise Crosby was just satisfied that she wasn't given enough to do.
It's true, because what was her role? Like, yes, she was chief of security, but then you had Worf there.
Yeah.
So, I never understood why Worf was there standing right behind her when he was somewhat security, too. And it was just, there was too
There
many
wasn't
people on the
room for
bridge.
both of them.
No.
And unfortunately, Worf is more interesting of a character than Tasha.
If they could have just found something else for Tasha to do. And I also wonder, too, if they were going to tease a possible love interest between her and Worf.
They should have. I think they would have made a great couple.
She said in the final episode with her, Skin of Evil, she said there's a scene where her and Worf are talking, and there are a bit of hints of romance in that scene, Like budding romance. And she said, if I had more scenes like that between me and Michael Dorn, I probably would have stayed on the show.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of the traits that they used for Jadzia's relationship with Worf is very present in her relationship with Worf as well.
Yeah, so that's my bottom 5. Schweitzer, you want to go next?
That's a ghost.
Okay, well, I'm not going to talk too much about my number 5 because that's Masks as well. I will say, though, that it seems like in Season 7 they were doing exploring a lot of things with Data, because you had this episode, you had the previous episode, which was Thine Own Self, and I thought it's a bit weird that they have 2 Data-centric episodes back-to-back almost.
Was it the Data's Mother episode?
No, Thine Own Self was where Data loses his memory. Remember? The radioactivity.
Oh, yeah.
I like that one.
That's a good one. I like that one.
Oh, no, that is a good episode. But, like, I'm just saying, it's like, like, this episode focused on Data. Masks sort of has Data in a prominent role. There was Phantasms as well, where he starts having those dreams and not
dreams,
the wet...
Yeah. Isn't Data's Mother's episode in Season 7?
Season 7 or 6. But I think it is Season 7. I think it is Season 7, but it's almost kind of like they wanted to give, like, hey, Brent, we're trying to give you that episode in the hopes you can get a Best Supporting Actor Emmy nomination.
Well, I think it's just because it's one of those characters where it's so easy to write for.
Inheritance.
So much room.
And he was the most popular character on the show, so it made sense.
And he's not, there's certain things that where he's not really bound by physical restrictions, too. So if you want to do something where Data's got to do something a little crazy, then you're not restricted to the constraints of humanity, too, as well.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Inheritance was the Data's Mother episode, by the way.
Okay, so number 4 is also from Season 7, and that's Journey's End, the final episode of Wesley Crusher.
I like that episode. That's the Indian tribe episode.
That is the Indian tribe episode, and I just found it a bit silly that, Wesley's become, like, so sullen and resentful. It's like, well, then resign from the academy, you little puss. And you have this Indian colony, which I understand what they're trying to do, but I found it a bit silly that one of the chiefs, like, told Picard, one of your ancestors did this thing to our tribe, and, like, Picard's all wrecked with guilt over that, or thinking, oh my gosh, is this history repeating itself? I thought Picard wouldn't be like that. He'd just be like, well, okay, there's a similar name. I mean, so what?
Yeah, that part almost felt like modern Trek. Like, oh, this episode's really woke.
See, here's where I will push back on that a little bit. I remember that scene. There's a scene where Riker talks to Picard, and Picard says to Riker, they blame me for my ancestors, screwing them over. And Riker says, do you believe that? And Picard says, no, but I respect their belief. So I think Picard makes it clear that he doesn't feel guilty because of what his ancestor did, but he respects that they feel that way. Mm. I will defend that part.
I thought it was an interesting dynamic in the Klingon-Kardashian border dispute, too, and all the colonies are having to deal with that.
Yeah. No, that was interesting. I thought if they had focused more on that aspect, I mean, there are some good ideas, but I thought this episode would get a lot of complaints today because you have Wesley as the white savior of this Indian colony.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, it was the Traveler all along.
That seemed a little hammy, but it got Wesley out of the series. So
yeah, it got Wesley out of the series. Even though in a deleted scene of Star Trek Nemesis, he shows up at Riker and Troy's wedding, and it's revealed that he's an officer on the Titan, Riker's ship.
Huh.
Okay,
that's weird.
He just got bored of traveling and came back.
Yeah, he got bored of his
Went back to the academy.
What did you say?
Yeah.
He must have.
Or maybe he just enrolled as a civilian role, like he's the bartender or something.
Oh, no, he actually said he's got the night shift in engineering.
Oh, my God. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe the Traveler's like, if we travel far enough and fast enough through space, you won't be underage. Therefore, he's not a pedophile.
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting, Schweitzer, because I disagree. I like this episode.
Oh.
So it's interesting to find out that you don't. It's one of your worst.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 3.
Also, before you go on, sorry. Yeah. They never mention it in the episode. I don't think it's Star Trek canon, but in my head canon, that tribe is where Chakotay is from.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense
because
if he was in that tribe, he would join the Maquis. Now he was like a career Starfleet guy, so he wouldn't be living there with them. But I like to think he was from that tribe.
Yeah, that's his.
It would have been nice if they would have added that little detail to it, but
yeah, it makes sense. Anyway, go ahead, Schweitzer.
Number 3, what we also talked about, Sub Rosa. Again, it's like, I just don't know what they were going for, but they did try to add some stuff to TNG in the 7th season. Like, they tried the haunted house, and now they're trying the Harlequin ghost romance. It just did not make sense. The only part I like is that Irish guy saying, "Do not light that candle, it'll bring the ghost." That's the only part of this episode I can remember or like.
Stereotype.
Yeah. So those all 3 of those episodes are from season 7. I'm going back to season 1 with my number 2, and that's Code of Honor.
That's on my list too.
Oh God!
This one does not stand the test of time.
Oh, this didn't stand the test of time when it was being made. Apparently, Denise Crosby and Jonathan Frakes both complained to the production about how inherently racist it was, and they were really pissed off about it.
Why is it racist? Why do you think it's racist?
Because
it's a bad episode, but I don't see why it's racist. It is a bad episode.
Okay, well, consider this. You've got Code of Honor, a planet that's very, it's no place where you'd want to visit, basically, and it's populated entirely by black people. Then counter that with, Justice, where they visit a paradise society populated entirely by white people.
And it's also a horrible dystopia where you can be killed for falling on flowers.
Oh, yes, that I
wouldn't want to live there either.
It's like... It certainly looks inviting. Let's put it that way.
Okay, but Code of Honor, I didn't see they didn't portray the planet like a ghetto.
No,
Oh, it just seemed like very. It's just not like they just didn't like it.
I think they were a little heavy on maybe some of the stereotypes with African Zulu Nation stuff. But
that's where I think it mostly stems from.
But they were a prosperous planet. They were a strong people. They were treated with dignity and respect. So maybe it came off as a little, heavy-fisted with okay, this is what Africans are like, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think it's done in a racist manner. I think it may be a little stereotypical, but nobody was shining shoes and picking cotton for fuck's sakes. They weren't the slaves of the Federation.
No, but then you have the black guy becoming infatuated with the white Lieutenant Yar, and I don't know.
Worf wanted to bang her. He's a Klingon.
The people on that planet, they kind of stick close to their more tribal traditions, but so do the Klingons.
Yeah,
it wasn't Picard going to them. Oh, you're black. You can't bang my fucking security officer. It was their own people going. Hey,
too.
Well, okay, so what? There was lots of instances where people got kidnapped on Star Trek.
Well, Dr. Crusher got kidnapped by those terrorists. They were mostly white. Right. Here's that. I don't think it's racist, but it looks bad. It looks really bad.
It does look bad.
I don't think whoever wrote that episode was a secret racist or whatever.
No.
it just looks bad, and it's a bad episode.
To me, that's its biggest sin. It's a bad fucking episode.
That fight at the end where Tasha's got that spiked ball glove and they're clumsily falling around a jungle gym. That's really dumb.
Yeah,
it's really dumb.
You could have been way more racist on that episode.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Number 1 is from season 2, and this episode, the only thing this episode does is demonstrate how much better Star Trek got with its season finales, and that's season 2's Shades of Grey, which is essentially a clip show.
Well, you know why that happened, right?
Yeah, yes, because of the writers' strike and everything. But it's still an episode, so I have to include it. It's just it's a clip show.
Yeah, I thought of Shades of Grey, but I didn't put it on my list just because it felt like it's too easy. It's a clip show. Of course, most clip shows are bad.
Now, what if they re-edited it and put Crusher and Troy in it and called it Star Trek 50 Shades of Grey.
There you go. There you go.
Come to my own chamber.
That's where you bring back the Frankie Electric whip.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite scenes.
They do aerobics, but there's like a double dong. All gangs.
Yeah. Now that I would watch.
There you go.
Bring Tasha back again. Make it a three-way.
There's that clip of Troy and Crusher working out in their...
Yeah. It's the best.
Bring Batch in.
No, we're getting a little ridiculous now.
Either way, that's my bottom 5.
Well, it's never too ridiculous. Okay, so I have some that are on the list, some that aren't. So what I basically did here is I tell you the episode, the season, and then my one-line synopsis of the episode.
Okay. That's fun.
Ooh.
So I did Code of Honor, Season 1, Tasha Fights the Zulu.
Yeah.
Shades of Grey, Season 2 clip show.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Season 2, the Dauphin.
Yes,
Dauphin?
that's...
Wesley Love Story, for fuck's sakes.
Wesley falls in love with a secret monster.
Right.
Yeah, it's bad.
Who looks like some fucking bad 80s fucking cheesy... what was that stupid movie? I can't even think of the name of it.
Monster Squad?
No. It's a bad Jim Henson movie.
Labyrinth?
No.
The Dark Crystal?
That's the one.
That's a great movie.
I
I love the Dark Crystal.
Either way. They look like knockoff fucking characters from the Dark Crystal.
That is a bad episode.
It's a terrible fucking episode. The Outrageous Okada from Season 2, Dudes to Dudes.
Yeah.
Dude accused of banging another dude's daughter and fucking stealing something. I don't remember.
It's my least favorite episode of Season 2.
Really dumb, boring episode, which I didn't give a shit.
The only highlight of the Outrageous Okana is that it features a very young Terry Hatcher.
Yes.
Mm.
Wasn't she knocked up in it, though?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't remember.
She looked better in Demolition Man. Anyway. Sub Rosa. Yeah, Beverly fucks a ghost.
Yep.
The Lost, Season 4. Troy loses her powers and gets really fucking whiny about it.
Yeah.
I can't fucking hear him, so I'm completely useless now. It's like, you're still a trained counselor. Okay? So you mean to tell me the only way you can do your job is basically by being an empath or whatever the fuck she is? Like, oh my god, you just have to be normal like everybody else. Just fucking deal with it. Like, the whole episode was just her whining, and I don't honestly remember anything else about the episode.
It's a nothing episode. Nothing really happens. The way that episode should have ended is Troy's realizes like, oh, the only thing that makes me a good counselor is my God-given powers. I'm actually terrible at my job. I need to find another job. And then she quits the ship's counselor and works in
and the worst part is,
forward.
People are trying to be nice and help her. She's being a complete cunt to them too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not great.
It's like the counselor needs a counselor. Like, for fuck's sakes.
Rich Evans has a great quote in one of their Star Trek videos that I never thought of until he said it, that Guinan is a way better counselor than Troy is. It's so true. Whenever you have a real problem, go to Guinan.
Oh, yeah.
Because she may not have Starfleet training, but she's wise as fuck. She's like 200 years old. She knows how the galaxy works.
And she'll get you wrecked while she's doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Man of the People, Season 6, where Troy gets mind raped.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Fucking terrible.
The only reason that episode exists is to have Troy be raped.
Yeah.
Like, there's no point to it.
I don't remember what the gimmick was.
See, this race of people who can... what is their power? They can... Something to do with memories. They can recall lost memories or whatever. Yeah. One of them is taking a shine to Troy, and he's like mind raping her and then blaming his father?
Yeah, because the father has, like, some disease or was accused of something.
But then at the end, they find out that it was actually him because he just plain out goes to Troy's quarters and attacks her. Like, there's no twist. There's no, like, investigation. Like, oh, we got to find out who's really doing it. He's like, oh, yeah, I've been raping you the whole time. Ah! And he Harvey Weinsteins her in her quarters. It's so stupid.
And it kind of links me to another Troy episode. Remember the one where she was dating the dude that kept making her older because he was like sucking her life force out of her or something?
That one's at least a little more interesting.
A little better than this one, yeah.
But Troy, you know what? As much as it kind of, I have this cringe reaction when people call things sexist nowadays. The way they wrote Troy, it was a little bit sexist. She gets raped a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe find something better for her to do.
And she's an empath. She sees this shit coming, right? Like, that's what happened to Luxana.
I'll be honest, Bubs. When you speaking of Troy and like rape, when you were going through The Offspring, I initially thought it was that episode where Troy gets pregnant and have a baby. And I was like, oh,
the child.
Yeah, the child.
I like that one.
Well, I thought that's what you had. And I was like, oh.
I like that one mainly for the end scene when she finally lets the child go. Her performance is really good in that scene. Oh, also she gets mind raped in Nemesis. Shinzon rapes her, I think.
Yeah.
Poor Troy.
Well, hey, her brain was wearing that lobe. She was asking for it.
She was thinking for it.
That's right. Yeah. She's wearing that sexy fucking proto-matter.
Poor Marina.
Yeah. And my final one is The Outcast, Season 5. Riker bangs the he sheet.
Oh, yeah. I don't hate it.
I feel this episode
a weird
is
fucking episode.
It's trying to scream a message, but it just comes out as a whisper.
Right. It's like, okay, if you're going to do it right. And it just kind of dipped its toe into it, where they didn't even really go into like homosexuality or transgender. It's just like genderless, but she gets shunned for picking a gender, I think it was, because she liked a human male.
Yeah. See, I briefly talked to
that liberals want.
I briefly talked to Schweitzer about this episode, and I think the idea of Riker questioning his sexuality might be kind of interesting, especially since they don't really do, like, they tackle a lot of issues in Star Trek. They never really touch on homosexuality at all, especially in, like, the episode was in, 91 or something like that, 92. They don't really touch on that at all, so it might have been interesting for the romantic playboy Riker to question his sexuality, but they never really go all the way with it. They never really commit, especially the fact that the person that he falls in love with really looks female.
Yeah.
Like, she looks kind of androgynous, but if you were to ask 100 people, 95% of them would say that's a woman.
She named it Pet.
I think they should have done better with that, because, and I think maybe the reason why is they were a little bit afraid to fully commit to the idea of Riker possibly being homosexual or bisexual, so they erred on the side of female. You know what I mean?
It's 1991. They were still barely making any strides in that direction.
Sure, but Golden Girls had gay episodes 5 years previous. Like,
Golden Girls was not at that time one of the biggest shows on TV, though, was it?
It was pretty big, but I don't know if it was as big as TNG.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think maybe they could have gone a little further with it, and it would have been a better episode. But they were afraid to fully commit. That's how I feel.
But again, to me, another one of its sins is it's just not a great episode. It's just kind of boring.
Well,
what else happens in it?
Nothing really. I mean, what I think they should have done with with that character is, okay, she has a more feminine look to her. What they should have done what they did in The Cage, which is where they gave the Telosians. The Telosians were played by women, but they dubbed their voices with male actors. I think that's what they should have done here.
If they wanted to go, like, fully commit, that would have been a little bit better.
Fully commit. I would have said you give her a more feminine look, but you give her a very masculine voice. Or you do the opposite. Imagine, like, if it was, like, a guy, but it sounded very feminine, had a very slender frame.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say that would have been a good episode, but I think it would have had more potential anyway. I mean, yeah. Oh, she was more, he/she was more masculine than Wesley anyway.
Yeah, so to me it was just like one of those episodes where, like, okay, it's weird, they're not committing to anything, they're kind of sort of trying to send a message, but not really, and in the end, what in that episode was really memorable where you're like, I need to sit down and watch this episode. I just didn't care about it. So, It's not I hate it. It's not the worst episode. And honestly, it probably would have made an honorable mention list. It wouldn't have made my top 5 if hadn't you guys already touched on my top 5. So
yeah, we kind of got the best
you're
ones.
homophobic. You don't like that episode because of that. Yeah, fuck off.
Anyway, that's us talking about Star Trek for like 3 hours. I hope you enjoyed it.
Still not even close to the longest video out there about it. Or audio, whatever.
No.
Yeah.
Hey, it's what we like to talk about. You don't have to listen if you don't want to.
There's nothing out this year. What are we going to talk about?
We can't do an Oscar episode. I haven't seen any of the movies that came out.
We can't even force Wrecker to watch Picard Season 2, although I heard Discovery Season 3 is pretty fucking terrible.
Although Wrecker is now under obligation to watch
Yes,
Star
he
Trek
is.
Picard Season 2.
I'm praying it doesn't come out.
No, I know what you're praying for, and it's pretty sad, but I understand it.
Yeah.
I'll be true to my word. I will watch it if it comes out. When it comes out, I just really hope it doesn't.
Oh, fuck.
If it gets like direct to DVD, do I have to watch it?
Yep.
Yes.
If it gets leaked online without
Yes.
actually officially appearing on any platform, do I have to watch it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's as long as it exists, you have to watch it. Now, is Mike and Jay doing a Red Letter Media review of Discovery Season 3?
I hope
Mike
so.
and Jay won't. Mike and Rich might.
Or
Yeah,
whoever.
Mike and Rich.
Whoever, I don't know.
I would like to see Jay review Star Trek
Oh, he doesn't
Discovery
care.
Season 3. No, he doesn't. He knows nothing
I
about Star
forget
Trek.
half the time, but
I
yeah.
don't know. They probably will. I mean, all their Star Trek videos get lots
Just
of
because I
views.
know they hate it,
Oh, yeah.
and watching them hate it,
Oh, that's
I
the
enjoy
best.
it. Yeah, exactly. I don't always watch things that they enjoy. It's not as much fun.
I couldn't make it more than 4 episodes into Star Trek Picard, but I've watched every one of their Star Trek Picard videos multiple times.
Oh, yeah. No,
They're
they're
so
brilliant.
entertaining. It's like a therapy session for disenfranchised Star Trek fans.
Plus, I almost feel like I owe it to them to watch their review because they had to actually sit through it, and I won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I watched season 1. I'm like, no, I'm not going any further with this. I'm good.
Anyway, that's it for this episode. I think next episode we'll try to do something non-Star Trek related. Maybe we'll do a James Bond.
Yeah, we're overdue for a Bond review, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll come up
Gotta
with
get
something.
to the Dalton era.
Yes, for sure. It's Living Daylights.
The Living Daylights.
Yes. Starring Jordan Baker.
Mitchell.
My, Mitchell. What would your mama say?
What's the ribs?
If she ever knew that you were prowling out and carrying on that way, cracking in heads and jumping in and out of beds and hanging round the criminal scene. Do you think you are some kind of a star like the guys on the movie screen? Well, oh my, Mitchell, what would your captain do if he knew you was hanging around, eating lunch with crooks and shooting up the town? Though you've been out there rounding up the syndicate, succeeding where the others have failed. Oh my, Mitchell, you shoot 'em just to get 'em in jail. When they take a look at the record book, they will find you got a lot of class. Catching the gang with the whole shebang, arresting painted ladies for a little of grass. Oh my, Mr. Criminal, you better hide underground, 'cause Mitchell's gonna be coming your way. Just when you think you're safe, whoops, you've been found. He wrestles with the ladies and beats upon the bad guys quicker than a grease cantaloupe. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's the American dream, like the guys on the TV tube. He's such a super dude, the American dream, like the guys on the movie screen.
You want to make some coffee? Hey, I'll make some coffee. Oh, God, I wished I had a camera. I found some pictures of this from my old age. Hey, did you ever do any of that, obscene photographs and all that?